Welcome to 2023. Let's see what we got here. How many people are optimistic, pessimistic? Just started the poll. Votes starting to pour in. Very optimistic, cautiously optimistic, somewhat pessimistic, very pessimistic. See, like these are the people who lean left on the bottom, people who lean right on the top. I think that's actually true. I think people who lean right tend to be more optimistic than people who lean left. Am I wrong? I don't think so. Cautiously optimistic. Well, let's make some predictions. I'll make some predictions. This is just out of my butt. Strictly out of my butt. As far as economically, 2023, a good chance, I'd say over 50%, that the stock market will drop another 20%. What would that put it to? Maybe 3,000 S&P. Unemployment will go up. Yeah, recession will hit. Not extremely confident about this. What other predictions can I make? This whole idea of wokeism, if that's a thing, this idea of feel sorry forism is going away. I'm optimistic about that. I think people are starting to see through this whole idea that, hey, come on, feeling too sorry for people ends up causing more problems. So transgenderism, sports issues, it's going to go away. The most of the world's going to say, no, it's okay. Let's make these people cry and exclude them. More of that's going to happen. What other issues? CRT alarmism is going to subside because people are going to see through it. You know, it's not a good idea to pit people against each other. That's going to go away. I'll also predict in 2023, climate change alarmism is going to subside somewhat. Don't get me wrong, there's always going to be people who are going to be alarmists, but religion-wise, Christianity, Islam, especially in North America, Western Europe, is going to continue to fall. Well, Muslims will still produce kids at a higher rate, but birth rates will still fall, except for Muslims and Mormons and Mennonites. 64% cautiously optimistic. Well, good for you guys. It's open room. The link is on the top of the live stream chat. Atheists can call in, theists can call in, dogs can call in, crocodiles can call in, anybody can call in. What other predictions can I make? Oh, the future of apologetics and anti-apologetics is going to change. I can feel it in my bones. I hate to say this to all you atheist content creators out there, but the world of I don't know, biblical scholarship and trying to prove people wrong using that is going to wane, because you're going to realize what I've realized for a long time. These are not the main drivers. These are not the main issues. It will be mostly just for academic type atheists who want to feel justified that they made the right choice. Christians, Jews, Muslims, whatever, they're going to believe their holy books until they themselves make that change, as Michael Jackson said. No, it won't, Doug. What, Jerome? What are you disagreeing with me? You agree with everything I say, and today you disagree. Well, it's more than just boredom, Uber Scheiser. It's about it's not effective. It's somewhat effective, but not really effective. It's sure there's going to be some Christians who will learn something about the academic nature of the Bible, whatever, and they're going to say, oh, this is weird. But like if I look back of how I started my channel, the simple questions I asked, actually, I think it's That is effective. In other words, don't say a thing. Don't make any claims. Just ask questions. I think that will still always be effective. But stating, oh, here's a contradiction with this, or here's proof the Bible was written just by men and not God, or did you know this? I really don't think it's effective. You got to get people to think on their own rather than thinking for them. YouTube apologetics is going absolutely nowhere. Well, yeah, that's what didn't I just kind of say that? Both anti-apologetics and apologetics is going nowhere. That's what I'm saying. Both sides. Because they're not getting to the real issues. The real issues for most people are meaning, hope and purpose, morality. Questions aren't arguments. Exactly. That's why you ask questions. Even if you view it as strictly entertainment, even that's waning. Like, how many times can you hear Ken Hovind talk and still be entertained? I actually like listening to Ken Hovind. It's fascinating. It's like going to the zoo and watching a certain species talk. It's fascinating to me, but it's waning. Jesus said, when you see these things, know the time is near. Is YouTube apologetics lucrative? I don't think so. You can make money at it, but are you going to become a millionaire nowadays? Like back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, early 2000s, I think you could. But now, I'm not so sure. Like, you'll always be able to tell people that your biggest donor died and ask for the sympathy pay, and that you've been running at a deficit, and if you don't pay up, we're going to shut down. You can always say stuff like that, and you'll get some subscribers and some Patreons. Doug, you said that academic biblical scholarship apologetics is going to wane. Surely not. Well, I said the effectiveness is waning. I stand by it. In other words, let me make a prediction here. Well, the thing is, this is such a fuzzy prediction. It's not even a prediction. How do you measure the fuzziness? Let's let Hannah in first. Hi, Hannah.
Oh, hello. Did I do a good job? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you did an excellent job. I don't hear your background tab.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yay.
You're
Hi.
first-time caller, right? Long-time listener.
No, second time. Remember I called about advice for my parents about telling them I was an atheist? This was like and I wanted verses that you gave verses that would maybe help ease. We talked about Manitoba, Deutschland a little bit.
Are you from
No,
Manitoba?
my parents are.
Okay.
So that's why the connection. But it's been so long. I know you have people sometimes call in that are the atheists wanting to help the Christians kind of person. It's like, how do I ease the pain?
So how did things go with your parents? Did you ease their pain?
Yeah, that it was actually a year ago. It actually went pretty good. Um Better than I thought, but also like my mom has a verse for everything. So I think I said, like, what about people that I was giving some reasons, of why I left or whatever. And I was like, what about people that never like heard the gospel? And she's like, well, like, is it that the nature proclaims to his glory? So it's like they would somehow know, even if you're on a desert island and you have nothing, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna leave that rest. I'll just let that go.
Yeah. If you were on a
So
deserted island all by yourself, you would still know Jesus rose from the dead, right?
from the palm trees or something.
Yeah, from the palm
Sometimes
trees.
I'm like, this
Was
is
that a
more
cross in the
woo
palm
than we
trees?
think. Yeah. That's when you know you're having like dehydration delusion.
But you know why your mom believes what she believes, right? Because she was
Yes.
raised in it, and it gives her great
Oh yes.
meaning. And all her friends are Christian, and she likes to bake cookies for church. And
How do you know? The thing is, that's what I kind of wanted to talk about is I'm learning to appreciate some of my upbringing more. I know you kind of sometimes maybe want to talk about this, how there are some like good morals and values. I think you talked to Ida about this maybe.
yes,
And so, and I know there's always a balance, but at the same time, there are good things. Like I didn't grow up drinking like alcohol or smoking anything. And I do think it is good for people with developing brains to, lay off.
have some
And
structure
I
in their
do,
life.
yes. And I do see like, but then coming and, as an adult leaving like the faith, then it came into this, well, I'm in like a way different place, but I still want to try that, but it doesn't work the same. So then there's can be like, I had a lot of anger towards, well, I didn't have a lot of like vital experiences as a teenager. So it's messy in that sense. But I don't know. Then you can be an adult and have a relationship with different things, like let's say alcohol, which I do think there is a really good side of that.
Good side of alcohol.
No, of
Oh.
well, I mean, yeah, yeah. I'm coming off like a little rough New Year's Eve, so I'm a little like no alcohol.
No, I hear what you're saying. Like same with me. I avoided a lot of problems that some of my friends didn't because of my upbringing.
Yes.
But there's still some regrets. I remember turning down high school girls left and right. I mean, I could have had so much coitus.
Oh my goodness.
But then who knows?
Um,
Maybe I would have gotten a girl pregnant. My whole life would have changed. Maybe I would have got a STD. All that was avoided by saying no.
well, that's the thing. Like your whole the I've that's what I learned to accept too, like the trajectory of my life. It is the way it is. And there are, yeah, I mean, a lot of it was because of the upbringing and my parents. Um, but I don't know. I think, but here's the thing I think too. It would be almost easier to stay in a lifelong of that than come up like with a disruptive, like, whoa, this is not I mean, real. This is not what I feel like aligns with me. You know what I mean? Like, because sometimes people think it's easier. Like, oh, why don't you just? Why did you leave? Why are you this? And I'm like, this was a hard decision to make, because then you have a lot of things that uproot for the first time. It's like, well, what do I actually think? Do I want to drink? Do I want to that, or do I want to? You know?
But all these
Because
people,
then you got land.
all these Christians who stay in the faith, they have their friends, they have their bubble. They're going to grow older and they're going to die, and they're going to be replaced with younger people who
Yeah.
weren't raised that way. So Christianity, Islam, most of the mainline religions are going to wane over the years. Some people think that even if there's a catastrophe, people will go back to religion. But I think we saw with COVID, no.
Oh,
In fact,
yeah,
COVID hurt religion because it
yeah.
forced people out of their bubbles and to stay at home, and so they didn't, and it forced them online. And I don't know how many people because of COVID found me and then started doubting because they're
Well,
browsing online.
I don't. Yeah, and I must have been within the time frame because I didn't after COVID didn't go to a church. Like I was already out as deconverted. Like I listened to some online at the beginning of COVID, but then it actually I would say, yeah, COVID actually was helpful in the deconstruction, whatever you would call it, deconversion, leaving. Um, yeah.
So would you say that you want you have a dad still?
Yeah.
Your mom and dad still married?
Yeah.
Do you want your mom and dad to leave Christianity?
No. Well, I would say wouldn't it depend on what they're like after? But I don't know that.
What if they both left Christianity? They bought a whole new wardrobe and became swingers.
Yeah, that would be a little like stretching mentally.
That's shocking,
So
right?
yeah, no, but that's the thing. You don't know because you're at that point. Like, yeah, what if they like then separated? That would also be rough. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I would say no, just because I mean they're already so set, and I mean I don't like you. I don't wish upon. It's a painful process. I don't think it's always seen. It can be beautiful.
By the
Like I
way,
wouldn't
everybody
trade
just
it.
knows you're Canadian now the way you said that.
Did I
Process.
say A?
No, no, you said process.
Oh,
Did you know that? Americans say process.
oh, no.
Yeah. Most
Yeah,
Canadians say
yeah.
process, most Americans say process.
What do you say?
Well, I'm exactly right down the middle. I'm both American and Canadian now. So, well, soon I'm taking my citizenship oath swearing in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry. I just reading a comment, Dark, and you just made her visualize her parents swinging. How mean. I'm okay. I'm mentally tough. Don't worry.
No, I wouldn't want
I'm
that. I don't think I would answer the same as you. I do not want my parents to leave
no.
Christianity.
It's also so part of the thing is it's so part of how I view them. It would change like a lot for me mentally because you see them as like a consistent, that's just how they are, that's how they'll always be until they die.
Yeah.
And it almost gives you comfort though, right? Because what if there's a drastic change as a parent, they can, I put a drastic change through them, but like I'm not living with them, so it's a little different maybe, I don't know.
How many miles away do
But
you
they
live
can
from
handle
them?
it. How far?
Yeah.
Like an hour.
Oh, that's still too close.
I know, but they don't like I'm in the country and they don't really come out in the country,
Are
so.
you in Manitoba now?
No, I'm outside. I'm like not outside. I'm in Ontario, which I don't like Ontario. Oh, I gotta leave someday. I would prefer Manitoba. Um, outside like the Ottawa region,
Okay. Are
but
you in southern,
Alberta.
like, so you're in southern Ontario? There's a high Mennonite population somewhere there. Are you in that?
There is
Yeah.
no, because Southern isn't that more Toronto? No,
No, I'm thinking like northwest of Toronto. Oh, I forget what's it called. But I remember when I was in a private Christian school, we would travel. We traveled there and we sang, and there was a whole bunch of Mennonites, like old colony type Mennonites there, like with the head
there's
coverings and everything.
I think those are there's a bit more radicalized groups Southern Ontario because I don't know if you followed with COVID, like pastors got arrested here.
Yeah, Canada's terrible.
Oh, oh, oh my goodness. Canada is a different, it's not what people think.
I know people think that, oh, what freedoms have you does United States have that Canada doesn't? No, I mean like people were arrested and it's
It's
like the
and it
Soviet
was
Union in some
division.
ways.
Yeah, no, it was. It was weird. I literally one of my neighbors, like, when we were told like not even to go outside at one point, okay? Well, maybe you were too. One of my neighbors was just walking alone and like in OPP, which is like Ontario Provincial Police, like went like this to her for walking outside alone. I'm like, "What are you doing?"
I know.
Oh my goodness. It like really created this weird higher up, but also like especially Ontario, the healthcare. Oh my goodness. People think again, I know we get it for free, but are it comes at an expense.
Oh yeah. I've done the math on it. I'm better off living in the United States and paying for health insurance than living in Canada and not. I've done the math. I've crunched the numbers. I make more money in the
Because of
US.
taxes.
Yeah, because of taxes, the tax
Yeah.
differential.
Honestly, I would consider if it wasn't so difficult to like, immigrate because you need to have like a business to open, right? You need to give something to the American economy or have someone there.
Like
I would consider.
like if you make $100,000 in Canada, you're paying pretty close to 50% of your income in taxes because they don't have as many
Yeah.
deductions as the Americans have. They don't have, like, for example, mortgage deduction. But if you make
Mm,
$100,000 in the United States and you have two kids, a mortgage, you probably are paying closer to 15% taxes instead of 50.
yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I listened to you and your opinions on like capitalism, and here, especially in like Ontario, it's a lot. They're even trying to get like free dental. And it's just interesting because at the same time, are we all being like held down a bit for like everyone? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. It at some point it's more efficient, and there's more accountability when people pay for stuff themselves rather than
Mm.
pay a lot in taxes and then have the government take care of everything else.
Yeah, because they don't know what they're doing. It's all kafushed. It's
Kafushed.
it's kafushed. It's like
There's your Mennonite
but
upbringing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's heavy influence. Like
Confushed.
fuschen. Do you know the word fuschen? Like cheat is on Deutsch. Do you speak Plattdeutsch or Hochdeutsch?
Neither, but I understand probably
Oh,
50 to 60% of Plattdeutsch and maybe
Plattdeutsch.
2%
I
of.
think I speak Hochdeutsch. I always is it Hoch? I don't know.
Yeah, high German versus low German. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But did your parents speak high German?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My background, like my grandparents are all from they're well, you know when like back in when Black Forest days, like Germans were displaced. So like Oma was in Romania, but ethnic German, Opa and Ungarn, like Hungary. Like there's I don't know, there's deep history and like I think a while back. So yeah, no, and I lived in Germany for a bit. I did Saturday German school for 12 years of my life.
Oh, wow.
Uh, yeah, that was also that's why I tell people I don't know how to sleep in because you had something every day. School 5 days, German school, church. Anyways.
So, are you optimistic for 2023?
Oh yeah, I have to be. What do you mean personally
Yeah, for
or
your own life.
okay. Yes. Um I'm never usually a New Year person. Usually I see September as a New Year just because of school. You know, you're in school for how many years, right? But I do feel this is a good
So, what are you
um
studying right now?
right now I'm not, but I'm applying for my master's. I'm
In.
counseling and psychotherapy. I want to be a psychotherapist.
Oh, so you want to be like me? You know, I'm a
Oh, but a
psychotherapist.
licensed one.
Well, you saw that the other day, not a licensed
Yes,
therapist.
I did. I did the disclaimer, not a license. No, but honestly, it's so funny to see that actually what you do does like help people, and you know that it's people just want to talk, they just want to
I
listen. But I
know.
mean, there's it's crazy.
Did you see the
It's
other day a guy said he just came out and said, "I'll pay you $50 a week
to
just to
yeah,
sit and have you listen to me." I'm like,
I know,
whoa.
and you're like, I don't want your money, but also wait, you're like, I finally caught up on I just like put my because you release things and I like to be fully like I don't like breaks, but I was listening to an old one of you today with Dale Allison and what's his face?
Um, Mike Lacona?
Yes, yeah, yeah, the resurrection one.
Yeah.
That one is a good rewatch. He was doing some digs. It was so funny. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
He like his Dale did like the I'm gonna be a historian. And then like poor like Mike, he was just like, okay. I don't know. There's good times in that.
Do you agree with me? Like, when I don't know if you heard my opening, but I basically said that the future of apologetics and anti apologetics is going to wane. It's going to go down, the effectiveness of it. Like, how many Christians will listen to that Dale Allison video and actually be impacted by it, you think?
Well, the thing is, I didn't, yeah, I would say I agree because I only knew apologists in the sense of like some big book guys, like Tim Keller. Are those pastors or apologists? Tim
Both.
Keller, the kind of, yeah, there's really old ones. I used to listen to like Chuck Swindoll, like Charles
Yep.
Stanley, like the really and so those, but I think they were dead. And so then at the next like level comes, but I don't know what the reach of influence is, just some books, because I only watch comedy about it from you. Like, that's my like intake.
I like how you
I
say it's
don't
comedy.
It is comedy because like today I'm listening for my pure entertainment about resurrection. I'm like,
Actually,
yes. And
it's good that you use that word comedy, because when I say anti-apologetics is going to wane in the future, but
yeah,
I don't think comedy will. I think if you can, the
no.
best way to get Christians to doubt their beliefs is to get them to laugh at themselves.
Oh, I tell Jesse, my husband, that religion is fun when you leave it. All of my jokes are religious. But he laughs because he thinks it's hilarious. Like I still have artwork that's like the Last Supper. I still have like to me, you can take the girl out of religion, but the religion stays in somehow. Like I make jokes left and right
Is your
of
husband still a believer?
yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Oh,
he's a chill. He just likes Jesus kind of thing. I remember I
okay.
talked about this last time.
Okay.
But I but he also he doesn't like there's a lot of stagnancy in Christianity. You know how it's a like, oh, I'm gonna do better next week, or you just kind of there's a cycle to it.
Mm-hmm.
So and I can tell for him, I've asked him how would his life change. Like I've asked him certain questions like you have. To him, it's just I guess the idea of there being a greater thing is just nice and comforting. I'm like, that's fine. You have that. I'm not gonna take that.
You have that, you weak, weak man.
Yeah, yeah. No, sometimes though, I will say it is a bit of ego boost to be like, not everyone can be an atheist.
I've
Because
said
it is
that. Yeah.
it's I don't know, there's something about it, but he's also very much like
To be an
yeah,
atheist, you have to be, I think, either stronger psychologically, stronger financially, or
oh.
you have to be far left wing.
Oh yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry.
So
The
you
left and the
replace,
right is not something we say a lot here, but I know what you
yeah. So
mean.
you replace religion with secular humanism or whatever
Oh,
to take
yes.
care of you and give you that comfort and a surety that everything's going to be okay.
Honestly, I know you talk about this, but I wonder if there's studies on that. Do you think there is about how much people latch on to like social justice things when they don't have like a
I don't
religious
know if
I feel like
there's
there has to
I
be
don't know if there's studies on it, but definitely you see people
trend.
who let's say are even fundamental Christian. They go to progressive Christianity, which is basically
Yes.
not no Christianity. They don't believe Jesus rose from the dead, that sort of thing, and then they latch on
Yeah.
because they want to be caring, they want to love people still, but they
Yeah.
don't want Jesus as the excuse, so they use some type of social justice as their excuse.
I watched that video with Sean McDowell and Brandon that you had. The comedy of that. Because but that he actually had some good points, Brandon,
Oh, he did,
which
yeah.
I was surprised by because it just shows how varying like levels of I don't know, justifiers you can have within the Bible because he's pulling stuff out that there are biblical and so but I was probably a progressive for like a hot minute because then yeah, it gets a little like
Yeah.
why am I doing this? I do see its purpose, but I don't think I think it's not a place someone's meant to be in forever. Does that make sense? Like I think you have to move away from that
Well, yeah, that's
eventually.
why fundamentalists, they kind of laugh, or well, no, they don't laugh. They're scared in a way of progressive Christianity because they see the progression that it will lead to atheism or just
That's a
agnosticism or
very good
something.
point.
Yeah. Can I
Yeah.
ask why you're so different than most women?
Oh,
Because you watch my
well,
channel and most women don't.
um, that's very interesting. I know, sometimes I wonder too why this is, like, my type of vibe and humor. It just is. It's I don't know what answer like, what would you expect? Because now I just do.
Well, I'm doing a poll right now. I'm going to see how many women
Oh.
are in here right now. Uh, I'm going, I am A, woman, B,
Ye
man, or C, both neither. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, you got it. Well, you know the poll you did about age? I mean, I'm just at the cusp. I'm 26, so I am one of your younger and female viewers,
Yeah,
so
you're a unicorn.
yeah.
I would love to study you in lab conditions.
In the PineCreek theorem. How do you fit in? How does this
Do you think it's your sense of humor and my sense of humor match? Is that why?
Yeah, I would say there has to be part of that. Also, it's the way that you I think okay, the way that you approach topics, also how you review things, also I don't always know what to expect from you, and I like that. Because sometimes a caller's there and it'll just kind of like piss you off and you're like, done. And then sometimes you're there and you're talking and it's a long time. And so I don't know, but I also kind of like how you're like, I am not your friend. You have a healthy, maybe you know what it is. You have like a healthy relationship to what you do. Also, you have your own life. I don't know. Maybe there's just this sense of like, I can be behind that a deeper, because I'm a more deeper person. And so, yeah, I guess there's more men. I see
81%
that.
men, 13% women, and we got 6%
Like,
German Shepherds watching.
during
Very smart canines.
yeah. How old is your German Shepherd?
uh, 2.5, and she's still
Oh,
growing. Yeah.
was she difficult to train?
No, but she had some
Oh,
ear problems, and we used
oh.
treats to kind of help, get into her ears, and then give her a treat. But then now she associates treats with bad stuff, so now it's
Cause
hard to motivate her.
oh,
Yeah.
see, they pick up cycles. They're very intelligent. I have two dogs and two cats. I love animals. I have Boston Terriers. They're both sleeping right now, so I don't know if I should disturb them, but
Now, to me, there's
maybe I
only two
should.
types of dogs. There's German Shepherds and Dobermans.
Oh, you like, see, I always thought I would have a big dog like a Dalmatian.
Well, yeah, I like the bigness of the Dalmatians, but I don't think they have the intelligence. The smartest dog, I think, is the collies, right? What do you call it?
Border
The
collies?
border collies. Yeah.
You know, I met a dog. Oh no, what's the name? It's a mix of like, no, she's a purebred. It's the type of bloodhound, and it has the strongest nose of all dogs that um what the owner was telling me, if a human walked by and 5 days later this dog could pick up the scent no matter snow nor rain.
Oh yeah.
Some sort of, it's one of the police like hunting what they use or
Well,
something.
my
I don't
dog
know.
is its grandparents are on the police force here in the city I'm in, and
Oh,
yeah.
really?
So when I take
Oh,
my shepherd for a walk, its nose is on the ground way more than up. Like it's
yeah.
constantly like sniffing.
Wow. That's crazy. I know I had friends that they had ex-police dogs and they're different. It stays within them. I mean, even for you, the lineage for your dog, it just stays within their system.
I'm
Um,
trying to train my German Shepherd to detect certain smells like spirits and Yahweh and Jesus, and so when a person walks by, I'll have the dog go up to them and sniff them to see if they have the Holy Spirit in them.
is that working?
Yeah,
Mine is it
and I to this day I have yet to find a human who actually has the Holy Spirit in them.
has this
My dog says no, it's not in there.
not even you?
No, definitely I'm an atheist.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. This is pancake.
Pancake. Pancake looks like she's
Literally,
had a few too many pancakes.
she is so okay, show yourself, honey bun. Okay, her eyebrows are like angry eyebrows. The way that she got gray. Oh, it's okay, okay, okay. Okay, sorry. They're both senior, but she's 8 and Buster's 12. I'll try to get him over. Oh my goodness. Did you grow up with dogs? Because you're
Oh
farm
yeah, but
Mennonite,
on the
but
farm,
outside
on
dogs,
the farm,
right?
dogs are more work dogs, protected
Yeah.
dogs, and so not like real pets. So
Yeah,
we had
yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
dogs. Like we had one Alaskan Malamute. You know what that is? It's a sled
I
dog,
think so. They're really big.
really
Yeah.
big. It knocked me out
Oh
cold
my,
as a kid. You know how
oh
dogs
my
get in that running mode and they just run in circles? This 120-pound dog ran in circles. I was probably 80 pounds and it hit me, smack, knocked me out.
oh, oh
But then it
my
would fight with
goodness.
porcupines, and we would have to take it to the vet to have all the quills taken out. And
No.
finally, my dad said enough, took the dog
Too
to the
much.
back 40 and shot it.
How long did you have the dog?
Um, oh, a few years at least.
Oh, wow. That must have been a little intense.
But
My
what I
goodness.
just said, take the dog to the back 40 and shot it,
Yeah.
like bet you the majority of people listening right now, they cannot fathom that that's the way life is. But that's how
Well,
farmers, that's life.
I know. Well, I don't know if no, maybe that's why there's also connection because my mom's from a farm. Like that's why the Manitoba, like outside Morris, like that kind of oh, friends? I like talking to people.
Okay, I'm gonna let this guy in here. I don't know who he is. Who are you, Joe Thinneth?
Joe the Ninth. Joe the Ninth.
Oh,
Well, I
Joe
was
the
thinking-
Ninth. That's right. Okay.
Got you.
I heard the word Mennonite and I thought maybe we should call this the Mennonite call-in hour. So
Oh, you're Mennonite as well?
that's right.
And what province are you from? Or are you in the States?
No, I'm in Alberta at the moment.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, let me get, are you a theist still?
I'm not, and I'd love to give you the credit, Doug, but I'm afraid you came on the scene a couple months later.
Oh, who are you going to give the credit to? Better not be Apologia.
Okay.
Okay, so it's Apologist.
Was it Apologia?
Well, I would say he was the nail in the coffin, but Holy Kool-Aid
Oh.
helped start that process.
Okay.
Oh, he's good too. I haven't seen.
Hey, Joe,
stuff
turn
like
down
that.
your volume of us just a scotch.
Sure.
It's a good Mennonite word.
How's that?
So do you agree with me that anti-apologetics is going to wane in the future? Or do you think because it worked for you, or did it work for you? What actually got you out?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's so many theories that you've had that have applied. Mostly it had to do with being disconnected from my community. Helped to encourage me to explore a lot more in ways that I hadn't before.
Like COVID, like that, the 2 years of
That's
COVID.
right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it got you out of your bubble. You weren't in church every Sunday. You started saying what's online to do. You found guys like Apologia and myself, and you started. But what did you hear that made you doubt?
No, I've always been inquisitive, right? And enough to play in the different areas within Christian theology to get me in trouble with people around me. But I think it's becoming brave enough to click on certain links maybe would be the answer, right? So Holy Kool-Aid, for example, kind of came across my YouTube suggested, and it was I think it was the Nothing Fails like Bible history. And I think it's the first time I've ever taken an outsider's look at that perspective of biblical history. And I think in hindsight, realizing how much I was a biblical inerrantist.
Yeah, inerrantist.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. So that was enough. And I was willing to give up the Old Testament because that God wasn't my favorite anyway.
Yeah, for most people.
But then he had another link that had to do with, I think, the historical evidence for Jesus is worse than you think. And that was an extra level of bravery required to click on that link because that was sort of my last.
Are you married?
I am, yeah.
Is your wife still a believer?
No.
Really? Who went out first, you or her? Did you do exactly the same time?
Well, this is interesting. And that's sort of what prompted me to call this time because your conversation, Hannah, had to do with your parents, and that's a common theme I've heard. And so for me, I've generally led the search into whatever the theology was. My parents have often been around me as I openly talk about everything that I believe in, and my wife as well. And so as I was going down this road, I stopped talking about stuff because I just was all the fear that I was experiencing, all the angst. I didn't want to wish that on anyone else, and so I just stopped talking, which they noticed.
Mm.
And so at one point I was brave enough to start mentioning where I was at, and it turned out they weren't very far away either. They were asking very similar questions. So.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So what has your marriage gotten stronger, weaker, or the same since you both left?
Considerably better. And I think this would be the main point that I was wanting to bring across when you ask, would you want your parents to deconvert? And obviously that's quite a nuanced question, but I was thinking within my marriage and then within my parents, the version of Christianity that we came from, there was a lot of the traditional structures of, the men are the spiritual heads of the household.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weight and requirements that came on that. And I would say for both my my dad and myself, we may not have succeeded in that area all the time, that our wives would have often felt perhaps our failure in being the proper spiritual headship that was the expectation that was built within the church.
Well, yeah, in the Mennonite, well, I'd say in most evangelical type denominations, men are supposed to be Jesus 2.0, like, you know, not as good as Jesus, but we're supposed to be Jesus.
That's right. Oh yeah, so when you hear that phrase, you need to wash your wife in the word.
And I did my part though, Joe, because I say this truthfully and honestly, I was better than Jesus because I never drowned babies.
Yes. Neither did I. I didn't realize that was such a powerful argument. Nor have I ever been tempted to. Yeah, but I would say, so speaking specifically for my parents, they would have said, or I don't know if it's fair for me to speak for them, but I will, that tension began to dissipate, right? So as they deconverted and just adopted a different way to look at things, that tension between my parents started to disappear, where my mom would no longer look at my dad as a failure in the sense of, you know, the spiritual role.
Wait, so your mom and dad deconverted as well?
Oh, right. Did I miss that part? Yeah, they did. Mm-hmm. Months, maybe about 2 months after I did.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
But did it have to do with you and your wife? The reason why your parents deconverted?
No, I wouldn't say so. I think we were definitely on similar paths, which was, it was difficult to love people around us in the context of the religion that we were a part of. And so we were starting to give up different theologies that were hard to fit into this, you know, the Jesus that is all love. The Greg Boyd version was starting to become popular.
The great what?
Greg Boyd.
Oh, Greg Boyd. Oh.
Right.
Oh.
And,
but they're not Greg Boyd version at all now, are they?
No.
Okay.
No, because I think inevitably, and you touch on this often, which is at some point as hell dissipates in your mind, the fear of that leaves, the cross starts to become sort of irrelevant.
Yes.
And then ultimately, I think you get brave enough to ask.
I remember capturing Christianity saying to me that I'm a one-trick pony because hell is often one of my themes of my show because I talk about it so often. But yeah, I think if you're going to do any type of anti-apologetics, put pressure on the concept of hell and the concept of the morality of the God of the Bible. And I don't think really you need much else.
Mm-hmm. It certainly opened the door to finally being willing to ask questions that I maybe unconsciously wasn't brave enough to do before.
What did you replace it with? Anything?
Well, in typical fashion, I decided to tear apart every worldview and spent maybe a full 2 years understanding what everyone else believed that didn't have God, because I had no framework before, right? I had Christianity and that was it. Everyone else was delusional and, you know, misguided in whatever way. And so I had nothing else. It wasn't like I was being just like, so.
You broke up it's not like what?
It's not like it's not like I was drawn by any other ideology. It was just I couldn't hold on to the one that I had.
Yeah.
And so then I just began to explore.
But right now you have nothing in your life, no big purpose, right?
That's right. Yes.
And yet you're still here with us. What's keeping you going?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the idea that there was no hope, meaning, or purpose without Christianity. It's something that I told my friends. I think I've told them many times where, you know, if I was become an atheist, I would just kill myself because there was it would just be abject terror, right? Just anxiety that would overwhelm and I'd be out. And yet it turns out when you're married, I have 4 kids. I have a community of people around me. Well, had, but it turns out you're sort of surrounded by purpose.
Yeah, because of your kids.
Yeah, I'm surrounded by it. Mm-hmm.
Did any of you, the parents of your kids' friends, tell your kids' friends not to associate with your kids because you and your wife are atheists or non-Christian? No,
we had isolated from that community during COVID. sort of in dramatic fashion. And even as a theist is actually when it happened. So it turned out my theology was becoming a bit too liberal. And so my community decided it was necessary to remove me.
Oh, you were ostracized?
I was, yes.
Like, were you a member of a church and they said, get out?
Mm-hmm. Not the church itself, but I was I was leading a life group within the church. So a community of 3 or 4 couples.
I see. What's the name of your church? You don't have to give without giving it away where it is. Is it a denomination?
Yeah, it's a Pentecostal brand. The part of the fellowship. I forget the acronym, but it's a Pentecostal brand.
Okay. Do you think Pentecostals leave at higher rates than, let's say, non-Pentecostals in the evangelical circles?
I think that's possible. Like you said many times, where you shouldn't lower your standards.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think within that was certainly mine, right? My expectations of God were very, very high.
Yeah, Pentecostals leave faster than other evangelicals because it's admirable in a way that they have such high standards of their God, but at some point they realize my prayers are not working. Nothing's happening. Like, what's going on here? We should have this expectation that God's going to intervene like he did in the New Testament, but yet he's not.
Well, I'm curious, and I don't know this yet. Maybe a psychologist will make sense of this at some point, but my son declared that he was an atheist but a year before I deconverted. And he was 15 at the time, no, 14.
Oh, wow. As a dad, what went through your mind?
Well, my theology was liberal enough at that point that I had this idea that, God works out everything and it'll work out in the end, right? He's still
sovereign,
truly a Christian or something. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I would say initially it didn't really bother me, but it certainly started me on this question. I think that's where hell started to become, deconstructed.
So really it was maybe not Holy Kool-Aid, but maybe it was your son.
Yeah, that might be fair.
Not that I have anything against Holy Kool-Aid. I mean, he's a nice guy, but it's when someone you know and love, like your son, leaves, and then this hell thing becomes a real thing on the table. You don't want to view your son going to hell, so you got to change your theology, or just say, do I have any good reason to think hell exists in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
Like, my wife still thinks that I'm in my current state, if I was to die, going to hell. And I honestly don't know how she does it. Like, because, she loves me. And I cannot imagine loving someone and thinking that what I believe and who I worship is ultimately responsible for this system that will lead my loved one to this terrible place.
Yeah, and that's going back to within myself and then the conversations I've had with my parents, and that would be, you begin to realize the amount of cognitive dissonance you were experiencing while a theist, right? These are things maybe that weren't perhaps that conscious in your mind, but they began to show up as you began to look into the different ideas that you had, the different ways that you looked at things, your theology, and hell is definitely a great example of that. Now, when I think of, the friends that I no longer have that consider me a threat in my approach to to the theology and the points that I bring up, I've been struck by that, to think, these are friends that now believe, or certainly hold to a traditional view of hell, and would now say that I'm going there. And yet, I wouldn't say that any one of them have reached out to try to reconvert me or to bring me back.
Really, not one. Yeah, that was the same with me. I had one guy ask me, why don't you go to church anymore? And I just looked and I answered with 2 words, no need. And he didn't know what to say. It's like,
no. You
could tell in his mind, well, what do you mean no need? Like, you're going to go to hell. That's a need. Yeah. But, I must say I enjoy listening, and don't take offense to this, but I like listening to your Canadian Mennonite accent.
My Plotich was my first language.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, I grew up Old Colony.
Oh my. For those of you who don't
Consider
know,
myself AOG. You're more of a pretend kind of a Mennonite, I would say.
yeah, I was a EMMCer growing up. And for those of you who don't know, Old Colony Mennonites, well, you correct me if I'm wrong, but you grew up men on one side, women on the other. No electrical music in the church. Is that true?
That's right.
And there'd be a service would start with the elders, deacons maybe going to the front, all wearing black, and would start with a prayer and then singing a cappella.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Good cooks though. If you want to gain weight, you go Old Colony Mennonite.
Yeah, my grandpa was a preacher. I'm not sure if the main preacher, but one of them. And so we grew up with the most extreme version of it, which would be you couldn't have two-tone vehicles. You couldn't have like decals on your hat. This was very worldly.
Wow.
You'd break off all the antennas on the farm vehicle so that you couldn't
Listen to the radio.
listen to the radio.
What's interesting, Old Colony Mennonites are not that different from Hutterites, except for they don't live in communities like very close to each other. They don't share houses. Like in Hutterites will have have 2 or 3 families within the same building. And is there any other differences you would say between Hutterites and Old Colony Mennonites?
Probably the communal aspect is the biggest one. So, like I would still say we grew up with borders; they just weren't physical.
Yeah, yeah. But your dad was a farmer, then I'm assuming.
He was, and he mostly worked for farmers. We didn't really have our own farm.
Okay. What do you do now? May I ask?
I'm a home builder.
Okay. Oh yeah, in Alberta, that's probably a good business. Or have things slowed down?
It was a good business.
Mm. And for those of you who don't know, Alberta is the Texas of Canada. It has oil.
Yes.
It's, I'd say, well, when I left, it was probably the most capitalist province in Canada. Is it still? Or is it more socialist now too?
No, it would still be very capitalist. Well, we'll see. We have the new Democratic Party that may likely be the next ruling government in Alberta for a variety of reasons. So,
Oh wow. So has your politics changed since you left Christianity?
I've wanted them to, and yet I can't. So
You can't take the Mennonite out of the boy, right?
I can't. No, and you've made this point often, and I can't disagree. I'm conservative. I mean, certainly socially, I'm much more liberal now than I was, but that's about the only difference.
Yeah, me too. Like certain drugs taking, like, hey, if people want to take these drugs, fine. How about on abortion? Did your mind change on abortion at all?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I don't know if so much. I think even as a theist, towards the end, it was starting to get more developed. Like I was having more nuanced view. That wonderful N word.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely got quite pro-choice at this point. With the same response that you've had often, which is that there's just a certain point where it gets
Very icky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Hannah's still here, by the way, for those of you who don't know. But what's your view on abortion?
Oh, thank you for reintroducing me. I've been here. It is icky. Personally, like I would have a hard time doing it myself. Sorry, am I giving feedback? But at the same time, I think about it's like I don't know, it's just like a kid is a big thing. And I think about like the kid emotionally and all that. Like sure they can I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I've been thrown in back with the abortion topic.
Well,
um
yeah, part of me thinks that we shouldn't treat adults like children and say, hey, you got to take some responsibility for your actions. Abortion shouldn't be used as a type of birth control. That
right,
when you have
right.
coitus, you are assuming a risk or taking a risk that you should be held accountable for. And that if as soon as we say that, in other words, at a certain point, the rights of the baby in the womb, and I'll use the word baby, at a certain point, it is a baby in the womb. It's all dependent, but still it's a baby. That the rights of that baby approaches the rights of the mother. Now, I don't think it will ever supersede it. And I think in terms of value, the mother's life is always more valuable than a baby's. But yeah, you just can't dismiss it and say, well, it's the mother's choice and that's it. No, it's not it. There's the conversation to be had there. And that slippery slope argument about, okay, how many people would say, yeah, kill a baby 1 hour after it's born? That's fine. Well, how about 1 hour before it's born? Like, it's really hard for a reasonable human being to say that 1 hour before it's born is not wrong as well. If you say it 1 hour after is wrong, and then where do you cut that off, right? So for me, I'm like 12 to 20 weeks is the cutoff. Before then, go ahead. After that, then we got to start talking about things.
Yeah, it's definitely like, well, I don't think a lot about the time. I usually like the weeks. I usually just think of the issue, like yes or no kind of thing. But I it's interesting how those factors play in. I grew up, of like listening to seminars in the church against abortion and people's stories of being traumatized and they still have nightmares and stuff, like, which was kind of a lot. And but also sometimes I think the church is also has fault in that, in someone having so much guilt and shame. So I don't know. I think it's just a discussion to be had, but a personal choice of, yeah, I don't know.
Do you think the guilt and shame causes people to have more sex or make these mistakes?
Feeling guilt and shame around from having an abortion or just in general?
No. Well, I took what you said, meaning the whole guilt and shame around having sex to begin
Oh,
with,
okay.
that might lead some kids to actually having more coitus and getting into these
Mm.
areas and these problems to have an abortion to begin with.
Oh, yes. Oh, I understand what you're saying. Um, yeah, I do think it feeds into it, like the whole, well, in for some people, like for I can feed into this whole the purity kind of thing, and then you do the extremes. Sorry, my mind clearly I'm not
Like when I
thinking.
was
You have
raised, I specifically remember I was probably 13 years old and I was in Sunday school in this Mennonite church, my home church, and the Sunday school teacher came in and said, "Today we're going to talk about sex." I said,
Oh,
"Yeah," and he said, "I'm only going to say one thing about sex, and I
oh,
want you to remember this for the rest of your life. You can't get a woman pregnant if you keep your pants on." And then he
oh.
moved on to something else.
What?
That's all he said. But you know what? I remembered that all through my teenage years, and all those situations where I found myself in. I just thought my pants are never coming off. Never, ever, 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 ever. Zippers closed, never. And it was a good rule of thumb.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I don't know. I think here's the thing. These things can land so differently for everyone. Some people they take it as like, oh, I don't care, I'm doing what I want and I'm fine with it. Some people it can go into like, I don't know, sexual dysfunctions because like it's this
Yeah.
whole you're not supposed to have anything and then you're married and you're supposed to like be like a sex goddess or some shit. Like it's just some people they don't know like, and I do think the extremity, because I don't know, I think the extremity can be a bit much. It's like there needs to be healthy discussion and all that. So
Well,
it's just
my wife went to a Mennonite lingerie store for our honeymoon, and it came with
an
instructions and visuals like, no, I'm kidding.
stop. I'm oh my goodness. I'm like I don't even think those words can go together. Mennonite lingerie. That's a sin
Well, it's
in
a big
itself.
black garb with a little hole.
Yeah, yeah. No. This is when the pants come off. You need to be told that. Oh
But
my
I
goodness.
hear what you're saying. Like, I'm probably describing every evangelical honeymoon where it's just horrible. I mean, you're learning. Well, I shouldn't say horrible. I mean, it's a learning experience where probably a vast majority of honeymoons in evangelical Christianity might not ever have intercourse during the honeymoon, like fully, because it's so new, never been used.
Yeah.
It still has that fresh, new body smell.
I just don't like the whole thing that like when you're having your wedding that people like look at you because they know you're gonna like lose your virginity or something. Like that's the weirdest thing to me. Like everyone when you're leaving, it's like on the next day, like it's so weird. It's like keep that away. Like oh my goodness.
Now for men, we go, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my
Well, it's an interesting exercise to try to measure the harm that religion causes. And I would say when I try to measure the amount of shame that I had over the first couple of years of having sex after being married, because I was a virgin at 22 when I got married, and I was surprised by how long that took to overcome that response that I had to sexuality as a whole, just through.
What you're saying that you felt like even as a married guy, what you were doing is icky or something?
Yeah, I had this response. There was shame that came with it. That was so bizarre to me because it was, all the rule. I followed all the rules.
Yeah.
I had checkmarked all the boxes, done it all well. Was praised for the way that we had played out our story, done it all right, and yet, even after we were married, that the shame was there.
What would you or what did you say to your children now? Like, would you encourage them to have coitus before marriage?
No, I wouldn't encourage it. And let's say I lean very much more towards having an approach to sexuality and focusing on ethics of it, so that whatever the decisions that they're making, that they are approaching it from an ethical point of view, not necessarily from a dogmatic. Like there's no rules necessarily, but it's trying to measure harm, really working on consent being a large part of it.
Yeah, but you know how kids are when they get in the backseat of a car. They're not thinking. They both can be consenting, but they're not really thinking. So what I tell my kids is, whatever you do, plan it out to the last detail. No, but the problem with that is it takes all the romance out of it, right? The spontaneity. It's like probably the best sex in the world is the sex that's spontaneous and but once you start encouraging kids to plan everything out ahead of time, odds are by the time that moment arrives, it's like, let's go bowling instead.
My wife and I joke about this, that we're just in this big social experiment at this point because we don't have data for how this plays out. And so our approach has been mostly that we need to be willing to repair whatever the ruptures are in the relationships that they have and the experiences that they have. Because we haven't been surrounded by this. Both of us grew up in very similar cultures.
How old are your kids? What's like the age range?
I have 4 between the ages of 16 and 6.
Who would you say you and your wife leaving Christianity, who was that hardest for?
My 6-year-old who loved to pray.
Yeah, it becomes a ritual.
At church.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. My daughter's 19, but all throughout her teenage years, she's never believed in Christianity. I don't know if she would call herself an atheist, but she basically is. But many times, I'd say at least a couple times a week, she goes into my wife's room to pray with her before bedtime. She loves being prayed for because, all the focus is on her, right? It's like, Lord, we pray for our daughter, blah, blah, blah. May you encourage her and bless her. It feels good, right? And so I would still encourage your 6-year-old, Joe, to, want to pray, go ahead and pray.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we do. But it's lost its flavor. She hasn't been around it much at all, and so she just sort of moved on. Yeah, but for my older boys, but my three older ones are all boys, and they never really bought into the culture. My oldest and my second oldest would have always been in conflict
Mhm.
with just Sunday school, being a part of the culture in the church. It's not something they ever really enjoyed, and so for them, it was a relief to not have to go anymore.
Yeah. I know. I remember taking my children to a Presbyterian church on Easter, and they had like a big bloody cross and stuff. And my daughter was horrified. She was probably 8 or 9, 10 at the time. It's like, get me out of here.
Yeah, I don't think we realize how well, it depends what church you go into. I was part of the church where like nothing's supposed to be on the wall, right? Because aren't you not supposed to have any pictures of Jesus?
Uh,
Isn't that the thing? No, like
no,
visual.
that's Islam and Muhammad.
No, it's really questionable. No, but there's
Well, making
something
details is
about it.
okay, but everything else isn't.
Protestants get icky with any pictures of Jesus or idols. Like if it's 3D-ish, then they get really icky. But if it's
Oh,
2D, it's fine. But
yeah.
but it's more of a Protestant thing.
Oh, interesting. Well, I went to a Mennonite Brethren church in Germany, and then I don't remember too much of that. But we also like traveled a lot, so then you go to the cathedrals in Europe and like you just see sculptures of everything, like Jesus and the stained glass. I mean, there's so much art to it. This changes the topic, but if you're not, yeah, that would be kind of scary as a kid. I don't want to say if you're not used to it, but I don't know if you should be used to seeing like a bloody figure.
Yeah. Well, guys, it's been nice talking to you. I think I'll let you both go. And there's another live stream going on with Bob Price and T Jump. I might hop on while staying live here.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time, Doug.
I'm gonna blame Bob for giving me a lot of hassles. Do you guys see that? I had Bob Price
Yes.
on my channel a long time ago,
Oh, yeah, a while
but
back.
it was about politics, not religion. And I got a lot of grief because I didn't push back
Yeah,
on him.
yes. So wait, are you gonna join another live stream or just watch it?
I'll stay live, but I
Okay.
will either watch it or hop on and keep this live as I'm on there. Yeah.
I'm like planning my source of entertainment as I cook. I'm like, are you still live?
What are you cooking?
Quesadillas.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
Mexican Mennonite. Okay.
Yeah. They exist.
They do.
do.
I got relatives
do.
in Chihuahua.
Yeah, there's German Mexicans too.
Yeah. My dad
It's
told me if
interesting.
you're ever in Mexico and you're having troubles crossing back in the United States or whatever, call this
Yeah.
number. And that's the number of my guy in Chihuahua.
There you
We'll
go.
get you across.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh. Anyways, this was fun. Thank you.
Yeah, take care, guys. Happy New Year.
Yes.
Bye.
Just like that Netflix show, Narcos Mexico. I got me some connections. Okay, let's see if T Jump still has Robert Price on. Deplatforming and cancel culture.
Also have a Patreon account.
Oh my goodness. Robert Price's internet's so terrible. Terrible. It's not doable.
So I think you'd find a lot of entertaining and intriguing stuff in either of those places.
Yeah, I can't deal with that. I don't want to go on and try to have a conversation with Robert Price and then not be able to hear him. Who is Robert Price? Robert Price has 2 PhDs in history and I don't know, history 1, history 2. He doesn't believe Jesus existed as a man even. He has some pretty interesting takes on the Bible in general. For example, I think he even doubts that the Apostle Paul existed in real life. But he's also a far right winger who has got him in trouble with the atheistic world. So yeah, I was gonna hop in, but once I saw his internet connection's horrible, I'm not. It's not worth it. Well, we've had two former believers on. It would be nice if I get two believers on, but I know it's scary. I know a lot of you in the new year, you still have your full armor of God in the closet. You haven't dusted it off yet. And you might need it if you come on. Do I think Paul existed? Yeah, I think he did. But the thing is, you know, when you go back 2,000 years like that, and you got these, what they say, 7 books are original out of the 13. Like, what do we really know about Paul? And we got some tensions between what Paul says about himself, what Acts says about himself. I don't believe he is strictly a mythicist. Nobody's strictly a mythicist. Like, if you're a true historian, you'll put it in terms of probabilities. Like, even Richard Carrier, would say, I think he thinks there's like 1 in 3 chance that Jesus actually existed. A great question to ask Bart Ehrman on this topic is, give it to me out of 100%. 100% meaning Jesus definitely existed. 0 meaning definitely Jesus didn't exist as a man. Where would you put yourself, Bart Ehrman? And if Bart Ehrman answers 100%, he discredits himself. He will not do it. I bet you. In fact, I don't even know if he's ever been asked this question before. And if it's on YouTube. But if he says 100% that there's no chance that Jesus did not exist, I think he loses credibility as a historian. Isn't consciousness an issue in a purely physical worldview? Yes, Sharpie, it is. It's an issue. It's weird. It's sort of like, but so is quantum mechanics weird. The double slit experiment's weird. There's a lot of weird things in life. But Sharpie, this is what I would say. I would say that it is more reasonable to think that all we have is material than posit this new category of existence called the spiritual realm or soulish realm. Because we all agree that the physical world exists. Even the people who believe in the Matrix or whatever, within the Matrix, the physical world exists. So why come up with this new category of existence? Like, what does it even mean to exist outside of time and space? It kind of all just falls apart. There's better evidence that Paul existed than there is Jesus existed, isn't there? Yes, I would agree. Because at least Paul wrote, or claimed to write. Why is consciousness in the physical world weird? Because basically you're left saying consciousness is a outcropping. It's a property. It's a emergent property of matter. And I understand the theist view that that's not a really good explanation. The fact that we can view ourselves outside ourselves is interesting. But don't get me wrong. I still think I'm still a materialist. You got to admit, there's some freaky things in the world. I think consciousness is one of them. I think that light can behave as a particle and a wave is another. Do you believe in the existence of Jesus? Yes. I'd say I'm probably 2/3. I'm the opposite of Carrier. 2/3 that he did exist. Because it just makes more sense to me. I can't really defend it, though. If Jesus never ever existed, I think you could still have the Gospels exactly the way you have it. But to me, it just makes more sense that it is based loosely on a real guy. But then you got the question, okay, who is Jesus? What is Jesus? The Big Bang singularity was basically spaceless and timeless. Well, that's true, but once the Big Bang happened, then we have our space and time, right? The laws of physics entered. So if you say that the singularity is outside of space and time, one could say the singularity is God without a bodiless mind. Consciousness is just a spectrum. Humans are high on the spectrum. Big woof. Well, the thing is, it's like the other day I said, I was sitting on my toilet the other day watching a fruit fly, actually, one of those little tiny flies, buzzing around. And you ask yourself, all the patterns it made in the air, where it landed and everything, is really freaky to think that's all caused by physics, right? It's very amazing. Think about when I play ball with my dog and I can bounce it off a wall and it knows instinctively the angle of incidence equals the angle of reflection. I mean, cool. Very cool. I love you for exposing David Wood. Stay happy, healthy, mate. Happy New Year. Well, thanks, Harry. But, to the left of your A button is a caps lock key. Press it now. Isn't that weird, though? I don't have that intuition. If you haven't looked at animals and really sat and watched them and asked yourself the question, why that and not that? The complexity of it is amazing. Like, even Tim West said that consciousness is a spectrum, but even if you go far down low on the spectrum, there's some amazing things. And then you ramp it up to us. Woo. Tim West, come on. You can't just do that. Like, it helps your credibility with theists if you can admit certain things. And if there's anything a materialist can admit, it's that consciousness is freaky, highly complex, and amazing. And they use this as evidence for God. I don't, but give it to them. Just don't say physics to chemistry to biology to consciousness. I mean, you make it sound like you got it all figured out when we don't. Big Daddy Addy, thanks for the donation. Love your content. Used to watch a lot of Dillahunty, but can't anymore. Too woke and too angry. You never scream fallacy, and it's refreshing. Well, thank you. I try not to scream. I think I have uttered the word fallacy a few times, but I think Dillahunty realizes too that doesn't work. Yeah, I'm getting. There's 2 times where I get philosophical, Paul James, on the toilet and on a couch with a cigar. Would you enjoy talking about future predictions? I love to call in and talk about what you think is the next for the world. I already did, Jack Vaughn, in the opening monologue. But let's give Theist a chance first to call in. I know, they want to. Do you also grant that human biology is weird, amazing when discussing design arguments too? Sure, yeah. But consciousness is part of human biology, is it not? I hear what you're saying. You're saying don't just remember the hits, remember the misses. Yes, I understand. Like psychopaths, there's a weird form of consciousness. Down's syndrome. Corpus callosum. Sever that puppy, you almost got 2 humans. But if you want credibility as an atheist, don't just push back on everything. When a theist uses an argument from consciousness to say there's a God, admit to them that yes, it's highly complex. Yes, there's a lot of things we don't know. Yes, it's amazing. Just don't say, well, no, it's biology, it's chemistry, it's physics. Doug's thoughts on Oppenheimer. He was a good German. Even bumblebees play. You can say, look how complex human DNA is, it must have a designer. You can disagree with that and still say, but yes, I agree with you on the amazing complex nature of DNA. In other words, what I'm saying is you don't have to push back on everything. Find areas of common ground and agreement. And you can say something as simple as what I just said, that, my explanation doesn't posit this new realm of existence, whereas yours does. So mine's in a way a little simpler, right? So even though we can agree on this weird, amazing, complex systems, you're just taking that mystery and that beauty and that design, that complexity, not design. Well, you could still say it's design in some respects, but you're just adding a new mystery to it. I'm not. So that's the way I think you should go about it. And that's what they do. God is just adding another layer of mystery onto it, things. Because theists who might be listening right now, you don't know who God is. You think you do. You might know some things in your mind you think you do, but I'm sure there's many things we could talk about. You'd say, well, it's a mystery. Does your family say grace over dinner? No, Jerome. Even my wife is starting not to. My wife is the only Christian in our family. Mystery phobic. Yes, Grade Warner. It's okay to embrace mystery sometimes. Hi, Harry.
Hey, man.
How are you today? Happy New Year.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, brother, I just asked a question in the chat. So I was wondering if the Bible mentions anything about dinosaurs.
No.
So I guess it's obviously a false book then.
So obviously what?
A false book.
No. How do you go from the Bible doesn't mention dinosaurs, therefore the Bible's a false book?
Like since they claim that it describes very like how do you call it, like it describes everything right from the beginning the earth was made. So we obviously have a handful of evidences about the dinosaurs, so I believe it must have shared, if since it's the only true word of God, so we all obviously believe that yes,
Are you a theist or
it's got.
are you a Christian theist?
I'm agnostic, bro.
You're agnostic, and you're under 25 because you called me bro.
Uh, a little bit more.
Okay.
I'm 27.
You're 37 and you still call people bro?
No, 27.
27. Okay. Well, you're getting to the age now where your prefrontal cortex has developed enough where I think you can stop calling strangers bro. Right?
All right.
Okay. But let's get back. Do you believe there's some things in the Bible that are true?
As I have made this transition from being a believer to an agnostic, the less I'm believing that yes, it must contain a lot of fallacies, a lot of faults.
That's a great answer, but not to the question I asked you. And can you turn down your mic a bit? Because I'm hearing some feedback. Just turn my volume down a bit. So I'll ask it again. Do you think there's...
How I do that?
How do you turn my volume down?
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. So my question was, do you think there's anything in the Bible that's true?
If I believe that, like, how about the Christians apologetics, like defend the shape of the earth, or everything else about the structure of the earth?
Harry, this is a simple question. All you have to say is yes. There's some things that the Bible says that's true. Like it mentions Jerusalem. Do you think Jerusalem is a real place?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
So whenever the Bible talks about Jerusalem as a real place, it's saying something true. Right?
So, yeah.
So when you come on here and one of the first things you say is the Bible doesn't mention dinosaurs, therefore the Bible is not a true book. You do see that's a very childish thing to say, right?
Oh, okay, I take that.
Yeah, and I don't mean it in a bad way, but you got to think through these things a little bit more. I come from the position that a lot of things the Bible says is false, and a lot of things the Bible says is true.
So based on your comparative studies on what Bible claims to be, based on your research, like what is true and what is not, you have like come to the conclusion like, yes, you're gonna be an atheist, right?
Right. Well, not a Christian at least, or a Jew.
Yeah, but still, being atheist is still way better.
Being an atheist is way better
than being a Christian or a Jew.
Why is that?
It's just like what I'm researching or gaining information over a period of time. That's what. Hopefully,
I agree with you in general, and I'm going to have to mute you when you're not talking. But in general, can you articulate for me why is being an atheist better than being a Christian or Jew? Go ahead.
Like you don't just have to believe, you have to like research on it or dig deep into what is actually mentioned rather than what pastors and evangelists have made to believe you. So that's what I meant.
Okay. Do you have any other questions for me?
Like I just wanna we may have diverted from the main topic. Like if like discrediting dinosaurs would be the most stupidest thing anyone could ever talk about. So if we consider Bible, if Christians consider Bible to be the word of God, it should have at least once mentioned it somewhere loosely around, like some creatures were made by the god, etc., etc., which look like this. If the god himself is discrediting it, so I'm talking about myself. I've got no other reason to believe that the Bible is actually a false book.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna have to mute you again, and I'll let you go. But type in Leviathan in the Bible on Google, and you'll get what some Christians would say are examples of dinosaurs in the Bible. Now, I think it's a stretch, but that's what they use. So you can talk to Christians who will actually say dinosaurs are mentioned in the Bible. I don't agree with them, but they'll just say certain words. They didn't have the word dinosaur back then, so they used different words, like Leviathan or even dragon, I think. Anyhow, thanks for calling in. But in general, if you're going to try to cause doubt in a Christian or Jew about the Bible being God's word, or dinosaurs not being mentioned is not, I don't think, an effective way to go. Also doesn't mention kangaroos. The Bible doesn't mention kangaroos. The Bible doesn't mention panda bears. The Bible doesn't mention platypuses. The Bible doesn't mention the ozone layer. The Bible doesn't mention Pluto. Uh-oh. Oh, it's a different Peter. Hi, Peter.
Oh, hello. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Can you?
I want to ask you one question.
Okay.
Maybe two. Sometimes you say, what would convert me to Christianity would be if someone prayed in the name of their God and did a miracle for you, resurrect someone or cause something to light on fire. Is that right? That's what you...
Yeah.
I've heard you say something.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Why would you convert to Christianity just because their God did that?
No, I would believe it's true. And then I would have to figure out which version of Christianity is true. What does that entail? And do I want to follow it after that?
Right. Okay. So you still wouldn't necessarily convert to Christianity just because some miracles.
Yeah. But then so let's say the version of Christianity I became convinced is the fundamentalist one, the evangelical fundamentalist with eternal conscious torment. I'm kind of stuck, right? Like if I find it repulsive, yet if I don't convert, I'm convinced I'll go to hell forever. What do I do?
Right. So really still it would depend on whether the religion comported with your sense of morality and other values.
Which this God gave me. Yeah. If I became convinced that theism is true and that there is a God out there or gods, and that morality is one of the things these gods or God gave me, then I would have to ask the question, why is this conflicting with what God gave me?
So you would need both. You need both this message that comports with your intuitions and miracles? What?
Yeah, a miracle would get me to raise my confidence that naturalism is false.
Right.
And then I would have to do investigation on which version. Okay. I've often said I'd become like a Pete Enns type Christian. Do you know who that is?
No, sorry, who?
Pete Enns.
No, I'm not sure I know that. Yeah. I don't know him.
He's kind of a progressive Christian, but he's really unique. He basically rejects most of the Old Testament.
He's like a Marcionite then.
Yeah, kind of. But he still believes in the resurrection of Jesus and that sort of thing.
I think Marcion believed in the resurrection.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Oh, anyway.
But do you disagree with the way I've set up my markers?
Oh, well, no. I mean, I would still have more questions about that. Like you sort of, because you're sort of unclear about what exactly it would have to be in terms of values in order for you then to accept it.
But what's the it?
But I think I understand your view.
Yeah, like
Christianity.
No, but what is Christianity?
Oh, I mean, like originally.
Like
or what is it now? I mean, it's diverse now, right?
Even originally, the people disagree with what it really is.
Well, sure, but I mean, if you want to say Christianity started with Jesus, then I guess Christianity was whatever Jesus was preaching, right?
Right, and what was he preaching? Even that's up to debate. What did he mean in those parables? Yeah,
I agree.
So it's not simple, but I think what is simple?
I think Aaron is probably right, but
what is simple for me, though, is that I honestly believe my whole worldview would be shattered if I saw someone rise from the dead in Jesus' name, who's been dead for years, an amputee get his limb back, like the laws of nature as we know it just being totally destroyed through the utterance of a certain prayer or word immediately. Like, that would be amazing.
Yeah, it would be a miracle in like the original sense, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what miracle meant. It's something that would amaze you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Can I ask maybe a related question? Say you lived back in Augustus's day or something, and they were teaching about this cult of Augustus, and they're calling him, the son of God, calling Julius Caesar a god. You wouldn't agree, right, that he was the son of God and that Caesar was God, with your mindset that you have now.
If I was born and raised in that culture, I probably would have believed that.
Sorry?
If I was
just cut out.
If I was born in that culture and raised in that culture, there's a good chance I would believe that.
Oh, okay. What if you were transported back there and you had to
then I wouldn't.
live? Okay.
Because I'm a product of the
Why
Enlightenment.
wouldn't you? Yeah, why wouldn't you? Okay, why wouldn't you agree more specifically with their claim that he's the son of God?
Because that's a big claim, and I would need to see big evidence to match it.
Oh,
and I would have to know what son of God means. Son of God just means a man that was created by God.
I think they meant he's such a great emperor. He deserves this title.
If it's just a title, then it's kind of meaningless. Then it's no big deal.
Oh, it's no big deal. So you wouldn't have a problem going along with an imperial theistic cult like that?
I wouldn't have a problem going along. You see how you frame a question, but let me be fair. No, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Oh, okay. I'm learning. This is really interesting. I'm learning more about you. This is super neat. Okay, that's fun.
I'm going to embrace the trap question and walk right in. I would have no problem with it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
That's it?
That's it.
Are you a theist?
Yeah, we talked once before. We kind of went into Nietzsche stuff.
You're a philosophical theist.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But what kind of theist are you, besides philosophical?
This is kind of what I said last time. It's if I had to guess that there's a God worth believing in, I would guess that there is, and I would just take the set of arguments that have occurred throughout the history of natural theology and think, probably one of the few good ones is probably right. I wouldn't say for sure that any one of them is right, but I would guess that probably one of them is right, because such a diverse number of intelligent philosophers, if you want to call them that, have sort of guessed that there probably is a God. Whether Plato,
where do you get that from?
We talked about Nietzsche last time, and we got into a controversy with like a few people in the comments. They started arguing about that, but I kind of went.
Do you think most philosophers are theists?
No, not today. But I think a lot of really good ones throughout history were.
Okay,
Kant, I think, is very intelligent. Plato is very intelligent.
But that's because they were like stupid compared to what we know today. Ignorant, I should say.
Yeah, I don't think Kant was very stupid. I think
ignorant. I think they were ignorant compared to what we know today about the world. They were not products of the Enlightenment. They didn't have the scientific method as we have it today.
I think Kant knew the scientific method pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah.
But back then, going back 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years, there were almost, I don't know, I don't think there was any atheists, very few. They would say atheists in terms of other religions, but not atheists in terms of no gods existing, right?
I think there were a good number of atheists in Kant's day. I mean, this is 200 years ago, right?
Yeah, Kant is a product of the Enlightenment, but the other guys, no.
All right.
So you think that these old farts, just because they were smart, that therefore one of them's probably right?
Not just because, but I do think there are competitive arguments to be made from different schools, whether a Platonistic one, right? Plato gives this argument for the existence of a form of the good. I don't think that one's probably right. Maybe I'd give it a 20% chance of being right. Kant gives a sort of transcendental argument for believing in the existence of a God. Again, I'd give it a 20% chance of being right. And Nietzsche gives this a sort of a transcendental argument, which is that it's worth believing in the existence of a God just because it helps fulfill a people's life, maybe not just one person's life, but a whole community.
Do you think any one religion on the planet's right?
Maybe someone has come up with a pretty good account.
Do you believe?
And I haven't read it.
Okay, but do you currently have a belief that any one particular religion of on this planet's correct?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay, so you're kind of a useless theist in a way, because you just say that there's a chance that one of the arguments points to a deity or deities, but it has, other than making people feel good, there's probably no correct religion in the world today, and it's just a kind of like a comfort blanket.
Could be comfort to some extent. I mean, you could see other aspects of human flourishing. I mean, comfort's an important part. I think from comfort, you get intellectual development as well. I don't think you see a lot of intellectual development until you have a good number of people who have comfort. So I don't think comfort's necessarily...
No, comfort's not a bad thing.
Trivial. It's not a trivial. It's not even a trivial thing.
But usually comfort comes from just having food, shelter, and clothing. Like all the great philosophers of the past were rich. There's a reason for that. They're
usually
because they had time to think and smoke their cigars and sit on toilets and watch flies go by.
Absolutely, but they couldn't have anxiety either.
Well, not necessarily. I think a lot of philosophers are wacko.
Oh, that's true. Actually, yeah, no, I overstated there. But they couldn't have an overly debilitating anxiety.
Yeah,
that would prevent them from thinking.
They probably just took mushrooms to compensate.
Maybe some of them. Yeah.
Do you find me interesting?
Yeah, I thought you came up with a lot of really interesting arguments, you know, and they would have like a real emotional poignance. What's the right noun?
Poignancy. I don't know.
Poignancy, that's right. To it, like your argument about Noah kind of confronting Christians with would you drown children in this way? I mean, it's just like, wow, that's a very compelling argument, I thought. And yeah.
I'm just curious why a guy like you is interested in watching a guy like me. Like, why do you care about what I say?
You draw out some interesting points and views from some of these Christians, mainly that you talk to, that I am interested. I like your conversations with Mike Winger and some others.
Did you come out of a very fundamentalist background?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Yeah, but I find Christians kind of hard to pin down. Like they're hard to. It's hard to engage with them and get them to answer things, I find. And so that's why I like watching you, because I think you're pretty skilled at that, at getting more information out of them and exactly why they believe what they do. So
okay, fair enough. And you think the tag argument's good? You mentioned that.
Sorry, which one?
The tag, transcendental argument for God.
Do I think that one's good? Well, I mean, that's a wide variety of arguments. I don't think that's not.
They're essentially all the same. That things like logic, the preconditions for intelligibility, uniformity of nature, all that must have a foundation, and that foundation points to God.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty simplistic account.
I'm a simple guy.
Of them, but I think the one Kant makes is a little bit more subtle than that, right? He doesn't say God's necessary for doing logic. He thinks it's necessary for certain.
It's the foundation, not for doing
Sort-
logic,
sort
for
of,
having
yes.
logic, for
Yeah.
and first cause
No.
arguments.
No, I don't think he thinks it's necessary for having logic. He thinks it's necessary for having a motivation and certain other feelings, subjective feelings in whether in teleology or aesthetics. So
You need logic to have subjective feelings?
no, yeah, I don't. I'm saying I don't think Kant's his transcendental argument for the existence of God is about the existence of logic. That's not Kant's transcendental.
Okay, so but there's other tag arguments other than Kant, right?
Yeah, and I probably most of them are garbage.
Okay.
I don't know though.
Okay. Well, Peter, have a great New Year.
Thanks, Doug. You too.
See ya. Tag only works if you first accept the Platonic astral plane. Oh, that's just science, Mr. Kreinen. Of course you gotta accept the Platonic astral plane. Who in their right mind wouldn't accept the Platonic astral plane? And once you do, you'll see the tag argument is amazing. Hey, Michael.
Hey,
The
hi there,
Archangel,
Doug.
how are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, Happy New Year. Nice to meet you. Finally, actually, I've been watching your show for a long time now. And I just wondered if you'd ever heard of a man by the name of Neville Goddard.
Goddard.
He's dead now. He was he did a lot of lectures back in the 60s and 70s.
How old do you
and
think I am?
What's that?
How old do you think I am?
No. I mean, that's when he was around.
Okay.
But and it's all a lot of it's he wrote like at least one book, maybe two. But anyways, his what I thought you would be highly interested is your knowledge of the Bible, and his perspective on it is absolutely fascinating, I think. And it's so I guess.
What's his first name?
Neville, Neville, Goddard, Goddard.
Okay.
But yeah, so his perspective is that it's not ancient history, but rather psychological poetry. And I can't do him justice by relaying exactly to put it into his words, but essentially it's that God is well, for instance, the story of Jesus is one of essentially God. His perspective that God is the mind of man is God, and that God became man so that man could then become God again. And
sounds very circular to me.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to listen to him. And like I said, I don't think I can do justice by relaying his perspective on it. But if you were to listen to him, it's a fascinating take. And yeah, like I said, that it's not ancient history. And
well, there's definitely some history in the Bible. There's definitely some poetry in the Bible. There's some mytho-history in the Bible. There's a bit of everything in there.
Right. Yeah. His take is that it's very, very deep. And I think would be something that interests you a lot. And maybe you could do a review.
No, from what you said, nothing in my interior consciousness is saying this will be interesting to me. Sorry.
Yeah. If you don't want to listen, that's fine. I just thought I'd mention it as someone. I mean, it's unlike anything you've ever heard regarding the Bible.
Well, I'm sure it is, but there's a lot of crazy takes on the Bible. It's just it's a bunch of men trying to make sense of the world around them, and they some of it's history, some of it's stories. I don't think it's more complex than that.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. I was just bringing it. I mean, I grew up as a Christian, and I find it absolutely fascinating that all these stories, for instance, the story of Job, on the surface, the most horrendous kind of take on what a deity could do to a human. But then from the perspective that if God is the mind of man, and that all things, it relates, it comes back to almost every verse in the Bible and the stories, which is that your consciousness is essentially God, and you are God. And the story of Jesus is just one of man realizing that and being persecuted, just like in the
Yeah, but
in the
that type of
Pharisees.
language, man is God. Like, I mean,
But it's all in the definition of God, because if the
I
only
know, but
way you
why
want
even say it? Like, what's the
to,
purpose?
well, the purpose is what comes back to what would make any religion worth anything? It would be the practicality of it, right?
Yeah.
Be something that could
Or if
make
it's
sense,
true, it might not be
right?
practical, but still be true. And I guess practical in the afterlife.
No, practical as in reality as we know it, right? As in me and you talking right now, that practicality. Um, but yeah, and if it's sad if you don't want to entertain new thoughts on that,
Oh
because
no,
it's
no.
absolutely.
Why do you say that? Why do you say it's sad? I don't want to entertain new thoughts on it. Like,
You said nothing about it was interesting to you.
right. And that's my honest to goodness truth. And then then you make it sound like that I ought to be something more than I am. That's
No.
how you just came across. It's sad
Well,
that you don't want to entertain new interesting ideas. You understand how that sounds like, oh, you're a bad guy, Doug.
no, not at all. I love your channel. I think you're very fascinating, because you are extremely high in self-awareness, to the degree that you can be born into something so strong as a religion and find your way out of it and observe
Okay,
your
but
own thought.
in one sentence, tell me why I should spend any time listening to this Goddard guy. In one sentence, go.
You will find it absolutely fascinating and entertaining.
How do you know I will find it absolutely entertaining and fascinating as opposed to something else?
I don't know, but I've watched your channel enough, and I think it would be highly entertaining for you. And maybe you could do a review of some kind if you like it or not. I'm just taking up.
I watched Back to the Future 2 yesterday, and it was highly entertaining.
Yeah.
So is it going to be more entertaining than Back to the Future 2 to me, you think?
From what I perceive of you, I think you would like it. Yes.
No.
And you don't. I'm not saying you're not a bad guy for not.
No, well, I'm being a little hard on you, but
I bring it on. I'm good.
But the thing is, like, there's a lot of takes on the Bible I just don't care about.
Yeah, and that's fine. And what it essentially comes down to is that it's not necessary to have any.
Is it going to help me with my conversations with theists, you think?
Short answer would be yes, and the reason behind that is, like I said, what would make something or a religion or a belief worth anything to anyone is the practicality of it, more so than just some kind of emotional appeasement.
Okay, but what is he going to say that I don't already know?
Well, in regards to the act of prayer, it's very, very contrasted to what typically normally anyone would think of as prayer, and it's
okay. In one sentence, what does he say about prayer?
Prayer is, so it all comes down to terms, definition of terms. If prayer is, petitioning God, and if God is your mind, then should it not from that stem that you can ask your mind for anything that you would like? And then
I've said this many times in my life. Prayer is more for yourself. You're just praying to yourself. It's to help ease your own self.
But in the sense that it actually does work. Would you like? So he gives a.
Yes, and I've said prayer as a placebo works. Like you can.
No, I'm not talking about a placebo. That's where you're not following. I mean.
No, I am following. There is no God. People pray to a God, think there's a God, and it helps them.
Yeah. No, and I don't think there is a God.
I know. I don't either.
I don't think there's a.
But this Goddard guy, if that's what he's saying, he's not saying anything new or at least nothing I haven't thought of.
That's fair. That's fine. I just
it boggles my mind how so many people think that even philosophers, they come up with these great, amazing ideas, and really, if you really stop to think about it, it's not.
Okay,
Like a farm
so
boy from Manitoba has thought about a lot of these things. I've never read a textbook before on this stuff. And I have people coming up to me, oh, so-and-so said that in the 2nd century. Did you know that? No, but it just makes
Right.
sense. I mean, you can just sit and think about these things. I mean,
right.
come on.
Well, okay, so one
Goddard, I spit on him.
fair enough. No, it's so like I said, if there was practicality to it, and it could be, you know, in a sense proven that way, would that be in any way convincing? And it's yeah, in any way convincing
You know
to
how many
the
people approach me say, oh, you should watch this, you should read this, blah, 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 blah. I've asked you, how can this help me with my conversations with theists? You said, well, take prayer or whatever. So far, you've given me nothing. You said
Okay.
absolutely nothing to even get me to even want to click once on a link about him.
Okay. So, yeah, so prayer in the sense is so his take is that it's your imagination is what prayer is essentially.
Ooh,
So, and
that's
he
a
gives
big epiphany.
well, if it's only weird if it because it works. I mean, to me. But would you like to try it
Try what?
to quote unquote pray?
What do you mean, try to pray? I prayed most of my life.
Right, and this is where we're a little off because you're not like I said, it's all
Are
definition.
you
of
like a
terms.
new age meditative guy?
No,
Are you a weird spiritualist, some type of guy?
no, I don't. I wouldn't say
Oh,
that
well, why did you just ask me if I want to pray?
because I would assume that you would then ask me what praying is, and I can tell you.
Why don't you just tell me what prayer is then? You already did. It's asking your mind for something, right?
Sure.
I was listening.
So one of his experiments, I'll call it, is he does with people in some of his lectures is to have them. He calls it climbing the ladder. So let me just ask you: when was the last time you climbed a ladder?
I don't know, last week.
Really? Okay, so that's a. Would you say that's a semi-common thing for you to do, or uncommon?
Hey, I'm handy at home. I climb a ladder, I'd say at least once a month.
So yeah. So when I say imagine, his imagination creates reality, and imagination is God. What that means is if you can close you can close your eyes. You can sense things in your mind that no one would say is necessarily real, but you can.
But yet it
You
creates
can-
reality, you said.
What's that?
Imagination creates reality. I just wrote it down what you said, but it's
Right.
not really real.
Well, it's yeah, real. What's real? Okay, but so say if you were to you can feel a piece of silk in your mind, can you not?
Yes,
You can feel that, right? Okay, that's not real,
right?
but sense.
But I'm
it's real.
imagining it.
Right. Okay. So that's basically the act of prayer is to do that with anything you would like or to have in life. and
Wow.
prepare- What's that?
I said, wow.
Wouldn't that
This Goddard guy is amazing.
would that not be wow? I don't understand. I don't understand.
I don't
know.
I don't understand either. So maybe we're just miscommunicating. We should stop.
If you would like to, that's
Yeah,
fine.
I think we're not communicating with each other. I think you think this is amazing stuff, and I think it's utter foolishness.
I'm not lost in la-di-da amazement. I think there's practicality to it, and if it works, then there should be something,
But you do understand when people imagine things, that doesn't make it real outside their own brain, right?
That's where I would say that the difference lies is that I believe that it does.
Oh, Myron, we got one of those in here. You think that by imagining something, it creates something outside your own self?
Outside, define outside.
So if I
yourself.
imagine a pink elephant with wearing cowboy stirrups, okay, imagine it. Does that mean
Right.
in the real world, outside my brain, there's a pink elephant wearing cowboy stirrups?
No, I would not say that.
Okay, thank goodness. But it sure
But in
sounded
the-
like you were saying that before.
Right. So, and that's where I'm, I think about that as well. You know, what's the limit to, you know, say that type of example?
The limit's reality.
Sure, okay, and in a sense, yeah. I mean,
And the key is to figure out what reality is. And the way that we figure out what reality is, I think one of the best ways to do that is the scientific method. And
sure.
So the key goal with these theistic type conversations is
Not theist.
is to distinguish between your own imagination and the reality outside of your mind, right? And so it sounds like this Goddard guy's a fool.
The positive theory is that that is where reality stems from. And what's fascinating is if you go back in life and you recall incidents, I can recall previous to that where I put a lot of the thought and emotion into such, you know, a situation, and it became my reality. So if you could back test it that way,
that's called having goals and achieving them.
Right, and those goals come from where?
Yourself,
your mind,
yeah.
your imagine.
But that's
you came up.
But that's
reality.
But you're creating that reality by setting these goals, getting up in the morning, and doing stuff. It's not just imagining it.
But before it was a quote unquote reality, it was a what?
Yes, an imagination, right? Yeah,
exactly. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so but you said nothing profound, and if you got this from this Goddard guy, he said nothing profound.
You can't make that connection. That the
yes, I made the connection, but I'm saying that connection is not profound. It's a farm boy in from Manitoba could make that connection long before Goddard did. I got to go plant a crop today. What am I going to do? I think I'm going to put on my boots and go plant a crop today.
Okay, sure. So the question would be, why does anyone go through anything that they don't want to go through then?
Because of external forces outside their control.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, we are a little lost here, but
you should pretend you're me and you go back and watch Goddard, and you're going to say, oh man, PineCreek was right. This guy's an idiot. He just said things in a flowery way and sold some books.
So
you've been duped.
Idea, the whole besides getting lost in Pink Elephant Land.
Do you have a man bun?
For anyone, I do not have a man bun. How dare you?
You got a ponytail?
I do not have a ponytail, sir.
Okay, you can stay on.
Okay, thank you. Well, you kicked me out if you want. So I'll say one thing also. Your content is good, but what's the best thing about you, Doug, is your sense of humor, and I think that's worth more than any kind of intellectual viewpoint on it.
That's the smartest thing you said so far.
Well, the smart people are funny.
Are we done?
Yeah, I'm accruing currency that I will spend with you later. So.
Oh, you think this was accruing currency? No. You're in the hole. You owe me money.
I'll give it to you there.
See ya. Happy New Year.
Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that.
What the shit?
That's how I feel. Ain't nobody got time for that. And what the shit was that? Rebuke and reprove. You see what kind of crazies I get? Come on, I need someone sane to come on. Why don't you come on? These atheists, wackos. I don't know if he was an atheist, was he? I've been praying for gold bars for 20 minutes now and wonder if they are appearing somewhere else. Well, what do you know? They're underneath my desk. Thanks for praying, skeptics and scoundrels. I said a naughty word? My mom says shit a lot. Shit's not a bad word. It's only a bad word to people not raised on a farm, which is most of you, right? But I should whisper it. Shit. Is that better? Just waiting for Theist to call in.
Have any concern about the once for all delivered this?
Who's talking right now? First one to guess. Whose voice was that? You should try to talk to the guy on Apologist Center channel. It's live now. Oh, let's take a look. It must be better than this Goddard fella. What's it called? Apologist Center. Let me copy and paste that. And for those of you who guessed correctly, that was James White. Oh.
I think there's a specific reason why those things are said. So yeah, I would disagree with you. But yeah.
Oh, he's going to quit now, right?
What was I going to say? Just got sidetracked. Yeah, we just set a new goal for our Patreon supporters. We had 25 was the goal for last year, and we met it. Not only did we meet it, we went one above. So we had 26 by the end of the year of Patreon supporters. We have set a new goal for this upcoming year, and I'm going to repeat this. And I will most likely record a video and put it on at the end of my shorter videos that I do about support. So if you guys want to become a monthly Patreon supporter or a yearly Patreon supporter, go to...
Asking for money. Was born in Armenia, migrated to the United States age 11. Art status, formal education, life, Pacific, biblical studies, minor education, went on MA.
You can become a patron for as little as $5 a month. And...
so I take it he's
check out
Christian?
the tiers, because we have really, really cool packages with those tiers. Personal meetings, personal coaching.
Just subscribed.
E-courses, things of that sort. So make sure that you check out.
Be civil, respectful.
Patreon.com/Apologist Center. If you want to give one-time donations, you can also do that with Venmo and Cash App and all that stuff that's in the description box. So yeah.
What does he mainly do?
Are there other reasons why women can't be leaders or elders other than it's...
Okay, I'll ask a very general question.
God-given, I'm assuming.
I'll show you guys that.
Which is enough for me, like practicals or something. Like practical reasons as to why women cannot be
Have you
elders.
hit the like button?
No, look, I wouldn't say they cannot be
this is
leaders.
A trap.
So you have to be very nuanced here. Right, I would say they can't be elders.
By the way, this is how you write comments. You go at.
I would say because
like
it goes against the order in which God has established things.
You go at, and then you put Apologia
so
Center.
that's the very
I'm teaching
simple
you guys.
teaching
This
of
is how you
Scripture.
do
Thank
it.
you, Nikki, for putting on that Patreon.
Do you?
So I would say it goes against what Scripture teaches.
The Bible has anything to do with a deity?
How are things in Armenia and Artsakh
If so, why?
now? Any news? So, thanks for asking that, Matthew. By the way, I'm not in Armenia, just to help folks get a clear understanding. If you guys don't know what's going on, I've made a number of videos. Me and Ruslan have done interviews. You guys can find out the link for those things. I've done interviews with David Wood on this subject. And so there was a war in 2020. The situation was pretty bad and has been. And as far as today, I haven't seen.
By the way, this is such a very simple question. Do you believe the Bible has anything to do with the deity? If so, why? What's the first thing that pops in your head? I'm curious to see what he's going to say.
Have blockaded the only road from Artsakh to Armenia. And that's 120,000 people in Artsakh who, for the winter, so far don't have gas.
Should we stream rate him? Like, that's a good thing. This is a good thing. We got 280 as 20 watching right now. Hey, yeah, let's do it. Okay, yeah, he disappeared. He's still here. So this is what we're going to do. If you guys so feel led. Again, this is not something immoral or bad. This is going to make him smile. Okay, watch this. 22 watching. Here's the link to his channel. Let's give him some love. Let's give this Christian guy some love by making him have 100 viewers instead of 20. He's up to 23 now.
Oil mining and stuff like that, right? Like they're oil and gas country.
As an atheist, you can do something good.
When was the last time these eco-activists in Azerbaijan were protesting against stuff that the Azeri government was doing?
Wait, it went down?
Think of one time. And you really can't, because they can't do that. But, they've essentially blockaded the path. And the French government, I think the Uruguayan government, a bunch of governments came out and said they need to.
This is not trolling. This is making them happy.
Doesn't seem like they care.
Just click on the link, and then you can mute it and still listen to me. Just keep that tab open.
What's up, PineCreek? How you doing?
Oh, he knows me.
Do you believe the Bible has anything to do with a deity? If so, why? What is the first thing that pops into your head? Well, there's many things that pop into my head on a regular basis. But do you believe the Bible has anything to do with a deity? Well, yeah. I'm a Christian, so I think the Bible has.
But what's the first thing? What's why?
Why do I think the Bible has something to do with a deity? Because I think it's God's revelation.
But why do you believe it's God's revelation? I got to type that quickly.
Behemoth, can you link?
Why do you?
Can you link stream chat?
Believe it is God's revelation.
I don't know what this means.
He's up to 42. You guys doing well? Come on, let's spread some New Year's cheer.
Hello, clarify please. Hi there, Nicholas. I'm gonna check something out. Give me a second. We've been going for an hour.
He's might quit the stream.
33 minutes.
Oh, no, he's checking to see if I'm live streaming right now. I'm gonna wave at him. He's looking for me. See, he's smiling.
Yeah. So here's what we'll do here.
He's smiling.
Yeah, I appreciate.
It's okay. We're not doing anything bad.
We're gonna restream your stream, PineCreek. This is just hilarious. If you wanna.
I might quit the stream.
33 minutes. Yeah, so if you want to have a conversation with me, I would just, and you've reached out to me before, I would appreciate it wasn't done in this kind of a way, right? So,
come on,
appreciate it.
This is fun.
And, yeah, what I don't like doing, is sitting there and just asking a bunch of questions that.
See, he's smiling.
No, I see you. Yeah, so here's. It's just
I
there's a
knew
weird
it.
lag. We'll do here.
It's okay. I just want to share some love with you. He's smiling.
So yeah, I appreciate.
We can be friends. Let's be friends.
okay,
We're not doing anything bad.
we're-
Can I come on?
I
We're
like
gonna
it.
restream
Hey, your stream, PineCreek. This is just hilarious. If you wanna,
Can I come on? I might quit the stream. Let me come on.
yeah, so
You want
if
to come on my
want
channel?
to
Oh.
conversation with me. I would
Okay,
just,
so here's the thing.
you reached out to me.
Because I want to listen to what you're saying, but it's there's a lag and all this stuff. I'm not gonna do that. But I appreciate it. Hey, I appreciate all you guys jumping in here. Thanks. Hi. Maybe we can set something up. But here's what I would say. I don't just sit there with atheists specifically and just go, well, I'm just going to answer all the questions that the atheists have. So we can have a fun dialogue, I guess, in the future. If you're down with that, you seem like a reasonable and cool guy. So
I am a reasonable and cool guy. This is what I asked him.
oh man, this is bad. We're like in the Matrix. Yeah, sure.
What? You want to come on right now?
It's just too much. I can't.
He's confused.
This is kind of chaotic because he's like in the Matrix. There's like 80 different windows open now.
Here, I'm going to send him the link.
I mean, I don't know how I can jump on your channel.
Yes.
Or we can do that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Doug is super chill. Yeah.
Okay.
Seen him around.
Let me give him the link.
How do we want to do this?
Oh, this is cool.
Send me a link.
Yeah. I did. Do you see my link? This will be fun, guys. Wake up the children. Wake up the neighbors. Sasha, don't say street epistemology. You scare them away. How do I send him a link if he can't see it?
So my folks, we're gonna I don't know whether I should end this and then just send everyone to PineCreek's channel or not.
You could, or you can keep streaming.
The thing is that I can't. If you send it in the chat, YouTube gets rid of the links.
Yes, I know. There, maybe that worked.
I cannot see links.
Let me see if I can get his email address quickly. Business inquiries, view email address. I am not a robot. Submit. Info. Close. Get out of here.
Best way.
Close. Copy. Email. Compose. There. Link to my live stream. Wrong. Delete. Here. Copy. Paste. Doug. Send. Chat. Tag. Apologist Center. I sent you an email. But you can also, why am I talking like a robot? You can also type.
Okay, I'm waiting for him to send the thing. And
.com /
we'll see what this looks like.
PineCreek. Okay. He might be coming on. This is great. It's the first time a YouTube content creator.
Bunch of stuff has been said, guys. Sorry, but
Make sure it was sent. Info Apologia Center. Tag Apologia Center. I sent you.
Looking for the email.
Sent an email to info@apologiacenter.com. Yeah, it went through. PineCreek is just a sad old man that likes to argue. When I hear comments like that, I know I'm effective. Oh, I didn't even see that. See if that works. Oh, he beat me to it. Oh, it worked.
We just like serious matrix in there, right?
You made it. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, no doubt, no doubt.
You know what made my year so far is when I knew you were typing to see if I was live because you saw me on there. And then I saw a smile go on your face, like, oh, he's streaming me.
He is streaming. Yeah, I just I picked up on it from just.
Oh, you gotta close your other tab.
Serious matrix in there, right? Exactly.
Hang on. Make sure your other tab is closed. I did the same. Otherwise, we're gonna hear each other twice. Okay, I'm good. Are you good?
Yeah, if it's not like giving out a.
Yeah, we're good. Okay.
Let me just end my stream, maybe.
No, leave it going because a lot of your followers will be too scared to come to my channel because of how evil we are.
Shame on them.
Okay, yeah, you can send them my way.
Yeah, go subscribe, man. Go
send them. Just tell them to go to PineCreek channel.
You guys should be interacting with.
Yes, thank you for saying
people
that.
Who disagree with you.
Thank you for saying that.
I mean. Let me actually see. I want to close these things down. I got multiple screens. It's so annoying.
I know. I got a lot of tabs up too.
It's just I use Ecamm and you're using like a different. I want to see if I can post this up. Let me see. And okay, this is gonna be funny.
Yeah, I have to do that too in order when I'm. That's fine.
Yeah, that's okay.
So you're still live streaming then?
Yes.
Okay.
I haven't stopped. Let me see.
Yeah, because I know a lot of theists, a lot of Christians are scared to even come on my channel because it might be an entryway to the evil one.
Oh.
Or I'm just an old man who likes to argue.
Wait, how old are you?
Oh, I am so old that when I was born, the Dead Sea was only sick.
That's cha-ching. Where is it? Ding, ding. You got some.
I'm 52. Yeah. I'm almost 52.
Oh, so I got a brother that was born in 1975. So you're not.
I'm not like
to
way out
me.
there.
Yeah, well, to me, you're not that old, right? Like I got. If I have a brother, take a couple of years away from you.
How old are you?
That's a bit different. I am 37.
37. Okay, yeah, you're a youngling.
Yeah. I got 3 kids.
Good for you. Kids are our future, Teach them well and let them lead the way.
They're fun.
Show them all the beauty you possess inside, Arthur.
Oh man. You can say Arthur, by the way. Just it's a weird thing.
Okay,
it's
Arthur.
A weird Eastern European transliteration.
Okay. Well, look,
it's an English name.
Let's talk deep but very polite and kindly, okay?
Let's hope so.
Yeah. And do you want to start by asking me anything you want?
Well, no, I mean, I guess you guys were just having fun, and you're like, hey, this guy who's doing apologetics is on. Let's go.
Yeah, someone said that you were on, and I don't view what I did as a bad thing because it made you smile, and I think it's having someone get like a rush of people coming on the channel is a good feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Yeah, and it takes quite a bit to get me not to smile. So
yeah. But the question I asked you in your live stream chat, I think is a good question and one that a lot of Christians almost feel paralyzed to answer.
Mm-hmm.
And for those,
which is why I think the Bible is the Word of God.
Yeah. And
well, there's multiple ways one can argue for this. I actually pick an easier way maybe of arguing and text the argument somewhere else. That you're probably used to that. I think the easiest way a Christian can answer this question, instead of getting boggled down with all the like evidences and all the details and manuscripts and stuff like that is just based on the resurrection. If Jesus resurrected from the dead, I would say, then the Bible's the Word of God. And I mean, by default, God resurrected. By default, it would mean God exists. Jesus, who is he who said he was. So, in regards to, I don't like build up. You could say, right? Like, so you can have the argument in two ways. You can build up to it, which I think is a bigger task. It's probably more difficult to do.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why a lot of people get paralyzed by it, because they try to give reasons and then they go, well, what about this portion of the Old Testament that's like very strange and weird, and we might not have answers for it. Or you just get your foundation right, assuming Christianity is true, assuming Jesus actually did rise from the dead, then the Bible would be the Word of God.
See, help me understand that, because I can imagine Jesus rising from the dead and even being God incarnate, and yet the Bible at least not being entirely the Word of God. Some of it could be, some of it not. Right? Isn't that fair?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Yeah, I mean, then at that point, I guess the atheist would have to secede or concede a point of obviously God existing and somehow having some revelation. I mean, having Jesus be the resurrection, having Jesus be the Son of God and God incarnate, and his resurrection being the fact that God exists. He's revealed himself at the very least in a person and in the written word to a certain extent, because Jesus affirmed the Old Testament, and then picked a bunch of disciples who he told to go and make disciples of their own. And so he had a certain kind of trust in them that he would guide them and lead them. Behold, I'm with you till the end of the age and stuff like that. So,
yeah. Do you understand why a guy like me might say that, like, is very skeptical why the Bible has anything to do with a God?
Why anybody would say
why I like
the Bible?
Like, for example, why do you think I would be skeptical that the Bible has anything to do with a God?
I don't know. I mean, you would have to explain that. Depends on your starting point.
Well, even like I can imagine me being a theist even and saying, and still being skeptical the Bible has anything to do with a deity. Because
I'm having a hard time making those connections.
Because like, just imagine all those religions that you and I would both agree on are, at least at its core, is false.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they have holy texts like the Hindu Vedas or the Quran or the Book of Mormon or whatever you want to say. Sure, there might be some true things in there, but I could even imagine being a theist right now and saying, hey, I'm very skeptical that the Bible or that the Book of Mormon has anything to do with a God, that the Quran has anything to do with God. I can imagine, I can see men getting together and taking themes that they might have been raised with, changing some things and creating this book over many years, or a guy like Joseph Smith having some problems with the New Testament and creating a new book. So I could be a theist and still say all those things. But then the question is, couldn't I be a theist and say that the Bible itself has nothing to do with a God?
Well, I wouldn't. I think there's a difference between saying it has nothing to do with God and saying it has something to do with that.
Well, sure.
You got to kind of, it really, because that's not the way typically people speak about inspiration, right? They don't say this has nothing to do with God. What they're going to say is, say like someone believes in partial inspiration, right? Which is a view some people hold. The idea there being that the important faith aspects about God are actually inspired, but there could be mistakes in there when it comes to historical data, numbers, things of that sort. So there's folks that already believe that are theists that would even claim to be Christians that hold to something like partial inspiration. But I think the arguments as to why I would use against like the Quran or something like that is because of their motive inspiration. Even Mormonism, not sure about the Hindu kind of stuff, but it would be like Islam, for example, claims that all this stuff was dictated. Okay, so they believe in dictation. The Christian doesn't believe in dictation.
Right.
in regards to inspiration. And so if it's dictated, it can't have any
Errors.
Historical thing wrong.
Right.
But if it says, for example, in Islam, this, oh, Jesus never died, right? This idea is taught in the Quran. It's like, well, he did die. You guys are wrong historically. Like, how could God get that wrong? That he never died.
But do you see what I'm saying? That like, can you imagine a God existing but having nothing to do with the Bible, and yet we still see the Bible exactly as we see it today? Like, let's say that was true. I know you believe it's not true, but let's say it were true.
I can imagine a deistic world, sure.
Okay, so imagine a deistic world, and we have the Bible exactly as we have it, and this God out in the deistic realm says, hey, this has nothing to do with me. Here's my question to you. How would it be possible for the Bible to exist exactly the way we see it today, and yet a deity has nothing to do with it?
Yeah, I'm not very sure what I would say that's possible. I could imagine a world in which there's a God, like a deistic sense of a God, and revelations or claims of revelations floating out there.
Right.
But I wouldn't say the Bible being the way exactly it is now, because then you're going to deal with this issue of, I would have to give up belief in Jesus. Let me just put it simply like that. In order for me to imagine that.
Right. So I'm asking you to
wouldn't
imagine,
be able to be a Christian.
Yeah, I'm imagining you the core propositions of Christianity and the Bible being false, a God still existing. And I'm asking you, how could we have the Bible exactly the way we have it today, yet it still be false at its core?
Can you rephrase that in a different form?
So let's say I have direct access to the one and only true God, and this God told me to tell you that he has nothing to do with the Bible. And now here's my question. How do you explain the Bible? We have it. How do you explain it if God himself told you he had nothing to do with it?
Oh, your only conclusion would be that the people in the Bible, the writers of the Bible, made stuff up and lied.
Okay, that's one explanation.
It would be the only one. Because there's claims in there that would have to be lies.
Like which ones?
Paul's statement about seeing the risen Christ. Any one of the disciples making statements, even if you get past Paul, like, oh, he had some kind of a vision or whatever like that.
Right.
He was high or something. I don't know.
Which is different than lying, right?
Yeah, but then the disciples who are claiming to be eyewitnesses.
Did they though?
Yeah.
Name one disciple that claimed to be an eyewitness.
I think Luke is very clearly arguing that he interviewed eyewitnesses and he wrote this stuff down.
But does he actually say he interviewed eyewitnesses? And was he an eyewitness himself?
Yeah, he says he interviewed eyewitnesses.
No,
beginning chapter of Luke.
No, he does not. He said he compiled narratives that preceded him, but it doesn't actually say he sat down and asked people questions. It doesn't say that.
No, he compiled a narrative.
Right, but he never. It actually doesn't say he interviewed anybody. We can look at it together if you want.
Sure, yeah.
Luke chapter 1. So, this is the.
Oh, you got it up. Okay.
This is the NIV version.
Yeah, not a big fan, but okay.
What version do you like?
Oh, that's okay. It's okay. Just use it. You have it up.
Many have Many have undertaken to draw up an account of the things that have been fulfilled among us, just as they were handed down to us by those who from the first were eyewitnesses and servants of the word. With this in mind, since I myself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning, I too decided to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus. Doesn't say here he interviewed anyone.
No, notice what it says in verse 2. Just as they were handed down to us by those from who were first eyewitnesses,
right,
and servants of the word. So who are the eyewitnesses and servants of the word?
So these were the first eyewitnesses that he's claiming, but it doesn't say
who are they?
He doesn't say who they are here.
Of course he does, because with this in mind, with what in mind? That these people wrote this stuff down, who were eyewitnesses.
Right.
I myself have carefully investigated everything.
But it says that was handed to him.
Yeah, no, it says I carefully investigated these matters.
Right, but it doesn't say he interviewed anyone.
So, okay, so if you were writing a book, I don't know if you have. You might already have written books. I'm not sure.
No.
But okay, so if you were writing a book and you were carefully investigating matters, both of a historical account, but let's just say it's recent history where some of those people are still alive, would you go and talk to these people? Is it that unreasonable to say that he didn't talk to these people?
That's very reasonable, but I'm just stating what the text says and doesn't say, and it doesn't say here. Now you're implying that he did, but it actually doesn't say he did.
That's fine. If you want verbatim him saying, I sat down and interviewed people, yeah, he doesn't say I sat down and interviewed
Okay,
people.
so
Yeah,
we're agreed on that. Now, it might be reasonable to think that he did, but he actually doesn't say that.
I think it's a proper rational implication that he did.
Okay. Now I'll give you that. That's an implication, but it actually doesn't say that in the text. So now we have a situation where, did Luke ever claim to be an eyewitness of Jesus' resurrection?
No, I don't think Luke is an eyewitness of Jesus' resurrection.
So now my question is there anyone in the New Testament other than Paul? I agree with Paul. I mean, I agree that Paul makes that claim. Is there anyone who says that they themselves, as an eyewitness, I saw the risen Jesus, like Paul said? Is there anyone other than Paul who says that in the New Testament?
Well, I think considering if we're looking at Mark, then I think Mark being Peter's. Let me actually pull up my Bible. Just give me a second.
And I really appreciate you going through this with me, because
no doubt,
a lot of Christians don't like doing this. But it gives you insight on like the brain of a skeptic a little bit, like, or I should say a brain of a guy like me, because I would make the claim that no one other than Paul actually comes out and says, I saw the risen Jesus.
Yeah. Again, I'm a bit, want to be a bit careful with whether individuals come out and say, well, here's what happened with me.
Right.
Right. And I think there's some common sense that ought to be applied in these conversations. So when Paul says something like, well, a bunch of these guys are still alive. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, here, right?
Yeah.
Hey, a bunch of these guys are still alive. We can go talk to them. I don't think he's making those statements like in the air.
Yeah, but
it generally means, hey, they're alive.
In a way,
they're his companions.
In a way that, like, I know what you're talking about in 1 Corinthians 15, but for a guy like me, and I say, okay, who is he writing to? This is the Corinthians, the people in Corinth.
Sure.
And so imagine you're in Corinth and you get this letter and you're skeptical and say, okay, I want to investigate this for myself. You realize how much work it would be to actually go to Jerusalem from Corinth? And this, and you got to remember, this is 10 to 15, maybe even 20 years after the fact. So now a lot of these people probably are dead. You got to get on a boat for, if you can afford it, to take time off work. You got to go all the way across, is it the Mediterranean? Then you got to get on a camel or walk for a few days. Then you got to get into Jerusalem. And then you got to try to find people who are actually there, who saw it with their own eyes, and ask them. Like, it's very easy for a guy like Paul to speak to the people in Corinth and say, hey, if you don't believe me, go.
Sure. I mean, again, then what you're arguing for is that Paul is essentially lying. At the most.
Well, yeah, I actually think that he might have had some type of vision and truly himself believed it was true, even though it was false.
Correct. But then he doesn't say, well, I just had this vision. He's saying, hey, I had this vision, plus all these other people saw this. And then that aspect of it would be he's lying.
Well, no, because other people could have had a similar vision to him. And even in 1 Corinthians 15, when he says that Jesus appeared to the 500, doesn't mention any names. Like, so it's not like the people in Corinth can go, okay, I got to find, and then he mentions.
Or it could be that people were just aware of these folks and he just says 500.
He mentions Peter by name and himself. And so some people actually believe that Christianity was started by Peter and Paul.
Yeah. No, I know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
2 people.
Yeah, lots of people believe lots of things. I mean, for me, that's not give or take. Like some people believe this.
But what's really easy for guys like me and you to do and agree upon is what the Bible actually says and what it doesn't say. And so we can come up with different conclusions. You can be a Christian, I could be a non-Christian, but we can agree on Luke never says he interviews people. You can imply it, you can say it's reasonable to imply it, but he actually never says that. And nowhere in the New Testament, other than Paul, do we have people saying, I saw the risen Jesus. I've searched, had this challenge for years.
Well, I get what you're going, where you're going with the argument. I mean, there's clearly an empty tomb, right?
There's clearly an empty tomb?
Yeah, so the claim of the empty tomb, let's put it, if you want to be like very...
Right, there's a claim, but in our earliest sources, that claim's not there. Paul never mentions an empty tomb. Now, again, you can say it's implied, like Luke implied he interviewed witnesses, but the whole idea of the empty tomb came another few decades after Paul, right?
What do you mean? When would you say the empty tomb claim would have come?
Mark, the Gospel of Mark, which is
okay.
The first
And you're dating Mark when?
At least a decade after Paul.
Which is when?
I would say most scholars say Corinthians, for example, was written in the 55s. So this would be in the 65s.
Okay.
Maybe 70. So now we have
I wouldn't
30 to 40 years later.
Okay, so if we got Luke, okay, so let's put it this way. I think Luke is easier. If the Gospel of Acts ends with with Paul arrested, right, in Rome, you're looking at the late 60s. If Acts is ending with Paul arrested in Rome,
I'm totally fine with that. If you actually want to give an early
so what I'm
dating
saying
for
is
everything,
then Luke would have to be, what I'm saying is, here's where I'm going with this. Then Luke would have to be
before Paul,
earlier than Acts.
Okay. And
so Luke and Acts are a 2-volume book.
Right. But if I give you that, how does that help you?
Because Luke very clearly uses Mark and Matthew. They would have to be earlier sources.
Right. But Mark is still after Paul, or are you saying Mark's before Paul?
See, before and after Paul is just like a weird...
After the writing of Corinthians, for example.
After 55 AD?
I'll give you 56. It doesn't matter, though.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, right? Like, yeah, if you want to do stuff like that, it's like, okay, if Luke is written in, like, let's just say 62 AD or something like that, and then Mark's written in 56 AD, it's like, okay. But these would be...
See, like
contemporary sources.
Most atheists like myself are happy to give Christians like yourself all that. We just want to hear Christians admit, okay, we don't have first eyewitness testimony, meaning it's very clear that we know what that means. When I think of eyewitness, I'm thinking of someone who says, this is what I saw. That's an eyewitness account. We don't have that in the Gospels. Like the name Luke is not even in the book of Luke. The name Mark is not even in the Gospel of Mark.
Yeah.
And so it's true.
To conclude that it's not them, to conclude and completely get rid of, say, the earliest sources we have of it saying it is them, what I think is very unreasonable.
Okay.
It's just for the sake of being a skeptic.
But then we have this problem, though, and I think we're agreed on this, I hope, that if you and I were to see a car accident and want to really know the truth of who's at fault and what exactly happened, we take the witnesses and we separate them, and then we go interview them and ask them individually, right? That's a very reasonable thing to do, because what happens if you don't do that? Well, then, in fact, I was in a car accident about a year ago, and I started, someone ran a red light and hit me, so it wasn't my fault. But then I actually started questioning myself. Did I actually see a green light? Did I really have a green light? Am I at fault, or was their fault? I started doubting myself. So then I actually went to the person who hit me and I said, you went through a red light, right? And she said, no, I didn't. You went through a red light. And we started talking, and then another witness was there. I started talking, and this is before the cops came. And when the cops came, they separated us and then asked us, okay, just tell in your own words what you saw. Now, if we bring this back to the New Testament, if we take the traditional authorship of the New Testament, Paul knew Luke, Luke knew Paul, Mark knew Peter, Peter knew Mark, Matthew knew John. John knew Matthew. They all knew each other. So this is the situation where we have people, the authors of the New Testament, all knowing each other and coming up with what one could say is a narrative. This is not independent eyewitness accounts.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily see a problem there. Whether people know each other or not. I mean, you're implying motive here, and I think that's a big problem.
Well, yeah,
and you're not only implying motive, you're implying negative motive.
No, I'm
like there's some kind of a facetious kind of thing of them implying this. Yeah,
I agree with you that I'm implying motive, and the motive is, I think that the people in the first century, the first Christians, truly believed that the kingdom of God was at hand, and that, and then that there was this idea of God returning and collecting his children and that sort of thing. But I do think, and I know Michael Licona has even admitted this, that it was a type of propaganda, but not in the bad sense. Like from the Christian point of view, you can admit it's propaganda, but in a good sense, that even the Gospel of John says, I write these things that you may know you have eternal life.
Correct.
Yeah. And so it was, if you take the traditional authorship, we have a situation of people not only knowing each other, but interacting with each other as they're writing these things, and even disagreeing with each other on some things, but coming up with a narrative for this greater good.
Would you not say that there was an easier lie they could have come up with?
An easier lie?
Yeah. I mean, if they're making a narrative up, I think there's a much easier narrative to come up with.
What's that?
That like people can't defeat.
What's that?
That Jesus rose supernaturally, not physically.
Well, some Christians actually say that.
No Orthodox Christian believes that. No Orthodox Christian says that Jesus rose.
Right.
The claim is, at least in the New Testament and then in Christian Orthodoxy, is that this is a physical resurrection and a physical ascension.
Right. And this is what's interesting. This is what some scholars find Paul very interesting, because he really doesn't talk about the life and ministry of Jesus. He doesn't really talk about the tombs or people going to the tombs or seeing Jesus on the streets. It's basically, this has already happened. Now let's talk about what it means and how to live.
Yeah, for me, it's like scholars say quite a bit of stuff. I've read quite a bit of them. So, and depending who you're reading and what they're coming from, that's all fair. I don't think Paul needed to do any of that stuff. To kind of put our own expectations of what someone ought to have done in a given situation without understanding the situation they're in. It's.
I understand that Paul had other.
It's just talk.
He had bigger fish.
Yeah, I mean, let's just come up with a scenario in which where Paul looks at it and goes, "Well, hey, look, my friend Luke here has done that. Why am I going to repeat that stuff?" That seems pretty commonsensical. Like if Paul knows Luke and Luke's already compiled something, why would Paul do that again when he's busy, say, ministering?
For the same reason Matthew copied or said a lot of the same things.
I think they have completely different reasons for writing what they wrote.
Right, I know, but we have the synoptic problem, or they do repeat each other. So maybe Luke could have repeated, or Paul could have repeated things that Luke said. But what I was
sure, but it's an argument of silence either way, is what I'm saying. It's like whether the scholars are saying, well, Paul doesn't talk about these things and stuff like that. It's like, well, he doesn't need to, and the claim could be it's an argument from silence.
Right.
And I would be like, cool, but so is yours.
Yeah. Well, I'll give that to Theist. That's fine. But it's interesting to me what Paul doesn't say as well as what he does say. But let's get like big picture type thing.
Sure.
If my own wife, who I've known for 32 years, came up to me and said that someone who we both know was dead, that she had a conversation and ate with them in a cafe that day, I would not believe my own wife, who I know and trust and love.
Sorry, if she said what?
That she ate with someone that we both have known to be dead for years.
Okay.
All right?
Okay. Yeah.
I would not believe her. My own wife, I would not believe.
Okay.
If she made that type of claim. So-and-so has been dead for 3 years? Well, I met him and we went out for lunch. I would think that there was a tumor in my wife's head. Right? So now, let me ask you this. If your own wife said something similar to you, would you believe her?
Well, I don't think that's the claim. I don't think it's a fair. So here, it would be the equivalent claim, I guess, would be if my wife came and said, "Hey, I just ate with someone who has recently died. Let's say 4 days ago."
Okay.
I'd be like, okay. I'd probably have a Thomas moment there. Just knowing me, I'd be like, cool,
right.
But can I have lunch with him too?
Right.
Like that's what it would be. I wouldn't necessarily just distrust her. Now I've known my wife for 12 years, not 30 something years. But yeah, I mean,
but why wouldn't you
I think
believe
that's
your
a
wife?
normal claim.
Why wouldn't you believe your wife?
Well, it's not that I wouldn't believe her. I wouldn't disbelieve her. I trust that everything, if everything was functioning right under the normal circumstances.
Would you be completely agnostic if your wife came up to you and said, "I had lunch with someone who was dead 4 days ago"? You would be completely agnostic?
I don't know if I would be completely agnostic.
Because I wouldn't believe my wife if she said that. Like
yeah, but
I wouldn't
like
assume
how
any
much
negative. I wouldn't assume any negative intention on her. Like I would come up with other explanations. Like she's sick, she's on drugs, someone's put something in her drink, and I got to figure out what's going on here. But my immediate assumption would be she's telling the truth, that in reality she had lunch with someone who was dead 4 days ago. Like, are we that different?
No, that's not what I'm saying. It's just, it really depends. I mean, if you have a wife that habitually says these sorts of things, then yeah, I would have a lot more
My wife doesn't.
distrust,
My wife's a very
right?
honest person.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's like, would you really have reason to distrust her?
Yes.
Or is it just like, and what's the reason that these things don't happen?
Yeah, well, at least very rarely.
Yeah, so I would say that's a worldview issue. If you had a different kind of worldview.
You disagree that
yeah,
people go
I
back
think
from
your
the dead
worldview,
rarely?
I actually think your worldview would dictate the way you interpret this.
Well, let me ask you one more time, because I don't know if I got a clear answer from you.
I have a supernatural worldview, right? Like, so I believe in supernatural occurrences and things of that
but that's
sort.
fine. But even if you do have a supernatural worldview, you don't believe that people come back from the dead after 4 days on a regular basis, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So it's very, very,
But
very rare, right?
I think they can.
Okay, they can.
Yeah, sure.
But it's very rare,
Yeah, I mean,
right?
Sure.
So would you say then, if your wife came up to you and said that she had lunch with someone who's been dead 4 days ago, even the funeral had happened, put in a tomb, would you believe that actually happened? Or would you say that no, it didn't, it probably didn't happen and there's another explanation?
My immediate reaction would be, cool, can we get in contact with him? I'm just telling you what a raw reaction would be. I think when we go out of our way to just distrust people we know and have known for a very long time, in scenarios of this sort, I think we're setting up the arguments to favor whatever our persons are.
Okay, so you would believe her if you could verify it, though, right?
Correct, yeah.
And you said you would want to have lunch with him too. What if your wife said, sorry, after lunch, he ascended into the clouds and left and went to heaven?
So this is exactly what I mean, that there was an easier lie that they could have come up with.
But let's say she's not lying. Let's say she actually had this experience.
Yeah, well, if we're looking at the disciples, right? I mean, that's the fair comparison. So if we're looking at the disciples, right, it's the I don't know if you've heard this or not, but it's the pink elephant in the lobby argument. Right? I come to you and I say, hey, I was just in the lobby. There was a pink elephant there on his laptop, just typing away. And you say, I don't believe it. I go, nope, let's go downstairs. We'll go check out the elephant on his laptop. So we go down to the lobby. There's two options. You say, hey, I don't believe it. It's not there. I can't see the elephant in the lobby. And then my response to you is, oh man, only a select few of us can see the lobby, the elephant in the lobby. Sorry. You're not one of the select few. Or you say, yeah, I do see it. And I go, oh man, you're one of us. Great. Right. So they could have come up with this sort of an argument when it comes to their contemporaries, right? Like say the Jewish leadership or whatever like that. They could have very easily said that he resurrected non-physically. The claims the arguments are that he resurrected physically. We physically saw him, right? Those are the claims. That's a much bigger claim to defend than the other one. The argument you're giving me is the one I just gave in regards to the pink elephant. If my wife had said that, then I would be a lot more skeptical towards that. But that's not what's going on within at least the narrative of the New Testament.
Okay. Well,
that's not what Christianity claims.
Okay. But I can make the wife situation similar to the New Testament and then ask if you believe it. So let's say she said to you, I've never told this to you before, Arthur, but I got to share something with you now. 10 years ago, I had lunch with someone. You remember so-and-so, he died 10 years ago? Well, 4 days after, I had lunch with him. And I never told you this before, but I feel I need to share it with you. Then I will ask you, well, would you believe her?
Did anybody else see this?
And then she says to you, yes.
Okay.
They don't say it in the first person, but and they're all dead now, but they wrote down 4 diaries and they also saw it. And so she said, here's the diaries. You can read them for yourself.
Yeah, and we'd go back and read the diaries and then try to come up with whatever the reasonable conclusion there would be.
So would the reasonable conclusion be that these diaries written, let's say 5, 10, 15, 20 years after the event that your wife is talking about, they don't sign it, they're not dated, and you read these diaries, would you say, oh, your wife did in fact have lunch with a dead person who came back to life?
Yeah, again, it would be whatever else is corroborating those with those diaries, what other people are saying around them, to the extent they went to defend their view of these things. Right? Like, is it that they just wrote these diaries down?
Would you believe it just based on the 4 diaries?
Would I believe it based on the 4 diaries?
And your wife's testimony?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
But I wouldn't necessarily disbelieve it, is what I'm saying. I would look at the evidences.
But would you be leaning towards disbelief or belief? You'd be completely agnostic?
I'm not sure if any of us are really completely agnostic or not. I'm not sure whether that zero bar is the case for any one of us on any subject.
Right. See, and what's happening, I think, in this conversation is that as I'm asking you these questions, you're building up the cumulative case for Jesus, right? You're starting with the gospel accounts, the martyrdom, and then probably we'll go to prophecies, and we can layer them in one at a time. But if your answer is, well, I wouldn't believe, but I wouldn't disbelieve, I want to know at what point would you believe it? Like, where does your needle say, yes, okay, now I believe my wife?
Yeah, it's very difficult because we don't have one-to-one correlations necessarily. Let's just say those 4 diary writers, including my wife, are willing to go to the death all separately from one another. Like you were saying, the cops would separate you and look at your evidences, right? So let's just take the accident. By the way, my wife was in an accident with my kids about a year ago as well. Really horrendous one. But so, there's all these people seeing it, the cops come and separate them and stuff like that. And then there's a real threat of these guys, including yourself in that given situation, or the individual that was saying, no, you ran the red light and you hit me. And there was a real threat on their life, on that information. You think that person would have kept up their part of the lie? It's like, cool. If we come across some information here, you're going to get the death penalty. You think they would have kept that up? Would you have kept it up if you were lying?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying is that the evidences around these things, it's just not these claims they make. These guys went to the death. I mean, one of the disciples that ended up going and doing missionary work in my own home country where I was born, right? They filleted him alive. I mean, I would suppose if you're being filleted alive, you'd crack and say, we made this stuff up, man. Like,
well, Kate, that's interesting because in order to say, like you mentioned the missionary recently, he could still be wrong. Like Christianity could be false and he could still truly believe it's real. And
that, yeah.
But we're talking about
That's
the
possible.
people who were in the know, like the disciples, right?
No, yeah, I was talking about the disciples who went to
Right.
my home country, and yeah. So Thaddeus and Bartholomew ended up in Armenia, and they killed both of them.
Do we know that they, number one, claimed to see it, and number two, had a chance to recant?
Yes.
We know this.
As far as I know, yes. Well, no, based on historical records. I mean, the thing is that it would have been extremely beneficial to the government and anyone opposed to these individuals for them to recant, right? And hold them up and say, look, these people were lying. Don't convert to them. Continue with our paganism. We're doing good. We don't need this foreign nonsense here.
But couldn't they have been killed for another reason, like sedition or? I'm imagining this, and this could be totally false. But let's say one of the first Christians who was in the know, one of the disciples, for example, they said, you either recant that Jesus rose from the dead or we'll kill you. And let's say that it is a lie, and the guy says, I recant. Okay, we're going to kill you. And they kill them anyhow.
Yeah, it's just, I have issues with these what if arguments. It's what if?
Well,
but that's not in any way supported by any kind of evidence.
Right. Well, is what I'm asking you, do we have any evidence that they had that chance to recant in the first place?
What I'm saying is, if clearly they're being persecuted for the preaching of that thing. So if they're changing their mind on it and they recant from it and they say no, and we've had plenty of folks throughout history who've recanted whatever views they've had, staves their own neck.
But we don't have any evidence, I think, of them having the opportunity to recant, the disciples. So if a disciple's seen another disciple recant and still being killed, then maybe they're going, well, what good is it to recant? Because I might as well die a martyr and hopefully they'll remember me in posterity.
It's like not many of them were around each other when they were all killed.
Okay, fair enough.
They were in completely different places. I mean, there wasn't even like this communal kind of pressure on them to keep people alive.
But you know Sean McDowell, right? He did his
I know of him.
Yeah, he did his dissertation on the martyrdom, and he's on record saying we only have good evidence that there were 2, maybe 3 martyrs in the New Testament, like that we can be confident we know what happened, and a rest of the martyrdom stories is like from traditions up to a century later that are right alongside a lot of other embellishments, so like Jesus coming out of the grave, like a giant guy holding a big cross.
Yeah. Gnostic text.
Yeah, and so it's like a lot of these ideas of martyrdom, though they were willing to die, a lot of it is just made up stuff, traditions. But we do have.
Well, I think that's a giant leap between something not being what Sean would say fit like historical scrutiny or something like that to something being just entirely made up. Well, like just because it's tradition doesn't mean it's entirely made up.
Yeah, you're right. They could have died as martyrs, but it wouldn't be any different than the martyrs we see in Islam and other things where, hey, it's still not true. They still were willing to die for it. Like I have a friend who's really big in history. He's in Eastern Europe, and he showed me texts where some pagan religions, they were anxious to die martyrs. They wanted it, and so they were willing to die for something false. And because of this whole idea of I will be remembered at least, and so we got that factoring in as well.
Yeah, there would have to be an internal kind of argument from the Christian perspective that these guys are like really willing, not really willing. I mean, they're willing, that they're on like this quest to die.
Well, I think that quest to die was real back then.
Well, no, Paul says, hey, look, we desire to live at peace with all men. And that doesn't sound like a guy who just really wants to die, right? He's like, hey,
well, you did say that that he was anxious to die, but God has a purpose for him here on earth.
Well, yeah, but he's using that in a spiritual sense, right? He's saying, look, I would say this is more beneficial for me, but he's not going out there, I would say, and saying, hey, kill me, I want to die now. That's what I'm saying. His desire is, and when he says we, I mean, there could be a personal desire. You could even say, I'm thinking on my feet here, by the way, so be gracious. Or you could be gracious. Comment section, be gracious, because you guys are
They're pretty good. I've been watching it.
No, I'm not even looking at it. By the way, I don't know. It's just it's YouTube, man. You know it. You know, like someone's gonna pop in out of left field and be like, "This guy, you know, where's it?"
Be nice in the live stream
Like,
chat.
yeah, let's be nice to each other. But I would say making a personal statement, like so Paul says, for me, it's more beneficial to die, or it's a gain for me to die and be with Christ. But it's beneficial for you guys to be. That's a personal sort of thing. When he's making that statement about, we desire to be at peace with all men, is a communal Christian understanding. It seems to me. And if there was some kind of a teaching that Christians should go out there, there's quite a bit of martyrdom, obviously, in the first couple of centuries. This is what they, the ultimate reward for, in eternity would be, let's just say, right? Something like the certain view of martyrdom that some Muslims have, then it would be taught in that sense. It's not. We don't see that being taught in the New Testament.
Yeah, I don't want to beat the martyrdom to death, but guys like Bart Ehrman would say that the very first Christians, let's say from 30 AD to 50 to 60, they weren't really persecuted that much at all.
I wouldn't necessarily disagree with him. I would say we don't really see persecution, empire-wide persecution, for those time periods. I mean, there's persecution within the Jewish communities. It seems like people are put out of their homes and kicked out, and they're not. So they're not accepted, obviously.
So the major,
some are killed.
So the major persecution starts on the second, third, fourth generation Christians who weren't in the know. They would be akin to the
even that. So from my reading of some historians, and I can't off the top of my head give you the sources, it doesn't seem like it's very often where there's like an empire-wide Roman persecution of Christians. There's pockets of governors. Some emperors will, go a certain route and be a little more aggressive and stuff like that. So do we see it in the Bible in regards to persecution? James is killed. I mean, that's persecution. Persecution comes on them, it seems like, under the leadership of Paul at a certain point. The dispersion that happens in Acts is because of persecution upon them. Those early first generation guys, they go up into Samaria and stuff like that. So there's persecution happening, and you can even argue that's locally contained within Judea, the fact that they can go up to Samaria. But it seems like anywhere they go, it comes with the territory, because wherever they're going, they're preaching this gospel. By preaching this gospel, they're denying the faith that these individuals hold. And depending where they are, they get more or less aggressive, whether that be Jew or Gentile, by the way. Sometimes it's the Greeks that get aggressive. Like I believe it's the one with the priests of Artemis, or the Masons of Artemis, or something like that, right? Or that be Jewish synagogue leaders that are chasing them out of town and beating them and all that stuff.
Yeah, I want to get your opinion on a couple of things. Like you mentioned worldview before, and I do think where you start in your worldview has a big impact on what you believe or not believe.
Correct.
But I want your opinion. I think you and I are the same, or very close to the same, even though you're a theist and I'm an atheist. And you can tell me if you think I'm wrong. If you and I were to walk down the street together and see someone collapse, start frothing at the mouth and wiggling around and kind of like seizing up, and we see this, and then we see like a crowd gathering around, and one person says, "Call 911, this person is having an epileptic seizure." And then person 2 yells out, "Call a priest, this person is demon possessed."
Mm-hmm.
And this is just a guess, but my guess is you would say, "Call 911, this person's having an epileptic seizure." And I would say, "Call 911, this person's having an epileptic seizure." Both you and I, even though your worldview is theistic and my worldview is atheistic, materialistic, naturalistic, would not immediately jump to demon possession, would we?
Yeah. Would we? My immediate reaction would be call 911 as I pray for this guy. So that's just I'm telling you exactly raw what my reaction would
you
be.
Jump to demon possession, or would you? Jump
I would pray for him.
But would you jump to demon possession?
So I don't think I wouldn't necessarily conclude that it's demon possession. I wouldn't rule it out of the realm of possibility.
Okay.
And look, to be fair, obviously there's Christians out there that would completely disagree with me. I mean, but it's just there's a number of things I've seen in my life and experience where I would say I wouldn't rule that out outside of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, and as a theist, I mean, as an atheist listening to a theist, I can appreciate that, but I still think you and I are the same, that odds are it's more probable that they're having some type of mental health or physical health. Yeah, sure, demon possession could be a 1%, 2%, 3% chance, but odds, you and I are the same. We would say that's probably some type of health disorder, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily pull that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And this is why I think that oftentimes when people talk about worldviews, we're actually not that far apart. Like I still allow for the possibility of demon possession as well. Like I could be totally wrong. Christianity is true. There's such things as angels and demons. But for me, it's just a very, very low percent chance of that. For you, it's a little higher. But in everyday life, I think you and I operate like the natural laws of physics work, and there's biological health, and we don't jump there. And so when I talk about
I don't think the biblical worldview actually presents a world in which we jump everything having some kind of a supernatural reason or a cause or something like that. I don't think that. I mean, some Christians might act like that, but I wouldn't say that's necessarily the case, right? So
unless we're talking about the New Testament.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that. I mean, people are still going off of evidences. So the folks in the New Testament, right? Like when they planted a vineyard and it rained, right? These folks aren't walking around saying there's a supernatural cause for the rain.
Yeah, but what I was getting at with that example, though, is the New Testament is that person who falls and has this epileptic seizure. You and I are agreed that odds are there's a naturalistic explanation for what's happening. You sure it could be a demon, but probably not. And so when I look at the New Testament,
unless there's reason to believe there's a demon.
Okay, but at
first glance, falls down. Let's just say the guy falls down is having an epileptic seizure, and starts yelling out certain things that would be otherwise unknown to this individual. So say the guy falls over and starts yelling, Arthur, X, Y, and Z, right? And me and you are walking. He's not just guessing at a name, but give some details
about your life.
Would you would you reason that was just an epileptic seizure, and as a result of that?
I would agree with you. I say something's fishy here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say that would be the case in which I would say it's a more fair comparison to the New Testament.
Like if I had 8 random digits in my pocket for like my credit card number or whatever, and as he's falling down, he says 61523, and I am actually looking. Whoa! I mean, my confidence in the spiritual realm would go up.
Correct. Yeah, and again, when it comes to worldview, I don't think it's just like a purely intellectual endeavor, because I think experiences matter with these things as well. Right.
I wanted to get your opinion on something else as well, because I've said to Christians, they often ask me, what would it take for you to become a Christian? And I say, I would need to see something similar to 1 Kings 18. You know, the story of Elijah and the wood, and he put water on the wood, and then they called on their gods and nothing happened. Mm-hmm. Elijah called on Yahweh and he burnt it up. I'd need to see something like that. I need to see like an amputee getting his limb back. I would need for you and me to walk through a cemetery. You pray in the name of Jesus, and someone comes bubbling through the soil alive.
Okay.
Is that so here's what I want your opinion on. Is that bad of me to ask for that type of evidence?
Is it bad of you?
Yeah.
That's a moral category you're putting in me. Or moral judgment.
Am I wrong to ask for that type of evidence?
So the way I would judge a situation like this is how often do we see those things happening in the book? So how often do we see a situation like the Elijah story happening? If the occurrence of it is more often, I would say you're within like reasonable grounds. If people are coming back to the dead, from the dead, just, you know, on the regular, not all the time, but on the regular, like just left and right, Christians are praying and dead folks are rising from the dead, I would say it's reasonable for you to do that. What I would say is those situations specifically are probably the most, some of the most, maybe not the most, rare seen occurrences we see in the Bible. Like, how many times do dead people come back from the dead? So there's the widow, there's Lazarus, there's the widow, right? That her son is being carried out.
That died, right?
Yeah, and it seems I would conclude that she's dead. Old Testament wise, I think there's one woman and within like the Elijah's. I think it's either Elijah or Elisha.
Elijah's bones. And someone was put next to his grave, and they came back to life. And then there's Matthew 27, the dead walked into Jerusalem.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily convinced whether that is actually literal. That could be some kind of apocalyptic literature going on there.
But you know, I hear what you're saying, that it's very rare in the Bible, so therefore it should be rare in real life. But is it the Gospel of John? It says that Jesus said, "You will do greater things than I have."
Yeah, I think that's in number. I don't think that's in. I think that's greater in number.
But wouldn't that mean then there should be more resurrections if it's greater than number?
Not necessarily. I mean, what are the things that Jesus did in regards to miracles? I mean, even if it is, the number is not that great in regards to the amount of people Jesus brought back from the dead. 3. So all of Christian history bringing back 6 people from the dead, that's 100% increase there, you know? That's pretty good.
So you lean towards that. My markers of what would change my mind are too stringent.
I think you've and we're having a friendly discourse here, by the way. And I feel there's a good kind of understanding between the two of you. If I was having this conversation with one of my really good friends that I've known for a long time, my response would be like, "Hey man, I think you're intentionally setting this up in a way where you get your way."
Like, I honestly do think my whole worldview would be shattered if I saw something like that. I'm not lying.
Well, yeah, because they're so rare and big. Obviously, it would be shattered.
And the reason why
not surprised. And by the way, I'm not saying you're not sincere.
Right.
That's definitely not what I'm saying.
But the reason why I think I would call this high standards. The reason why my standards so high on this is because I don't want to be fooled and duped into believing something that's not true.
Yeah, and I think you're completely in your rights for that. I think that's fine. Let me ask you a question, if that's okay.
Sure.
By the way, can you tell me your first name?
Doug.
I'm Doug.
Past tense of dig.
I just yeah. My wife teaches English as a second language, and we were regularly talking about it. And she has to regularly explain to folks how stupid English is.
It is.
But and I learned English as a second language, so it was very confusing, especially coming from Armenian, where everything's spelled and pronounced the same way. So ease and just like multiple letters making multiple sounds is just really weird.
Is it similar to Persian? Is Armenian Persian?
So Armenian and Persian are both a part of the Indo-European language, but the Armenian script is not like the Persian script. So in Farsi, they write from right to left, or as we would say, the wrong way. But linguistically, it's really, they're both Indo-European, but Armenian seems like it's its own branch. It's very interesting.
Some people say French is the best, most romantic language, but I've heard someone speak in Persian. I'm going
Farsi. My wife speaks Farsi. She's Armenian from Iran, and my parents are also Armenians from Iran. So I've grown up with Farsi all around me. Still have it around me. Spent a year and a half in Armenia recently, and lots of Persian friends.
It's a seductive language.
Farsi poetry is some of the most beautiful poetry you will listen to.
Yeah, I've heard some of it. It's amazing.
Linguistics is phenomenal. And I mean, I pick up words and here and there, you know. But when I was younger, I was learning Farsi. I just gave up on it for some stupid reason. I wish I didn't. Because there's some really cool historical stuff. Where was I? Yeah, so
you're going to ask me about something.
Sidetracked. So Doug, your religious, what's your background, like worldview wise, right? Like, did you grow up in a Christian home, Catholic, whatever? Like, yeah. So
raised in a Christian home, evangelical.
Mm-hmm.
Started out
and believe this stuff till I don't know what age.
I started doubting in my mid-30s. I was out at around 40. I was a deist for a short while and then became an atheist.
Were you married and stuff like that at this point?
Oh yeah, I got married at age 22, young.
Let me just a side note for folks watching. Would you recommend folks getting married that young?
Yes.
Okay, we agree on that.
Yes, but if
I got married towards my later 20s, but
if they're mature, like if they're complete idiots, then no. But the thing is, I look at the
you're of a different generation, man. Like
I know
you were younger, and your parents told you, "Hey, man up! You're gonna get married in like 10 years."
Like I left home when I was 15. I was independent. I look at 28, 30-year-olds today, and I mean, they know nothing. They're fragile. If the world really goes up craps creek, I mean
sideways.
They don't know how to survive. It's like if the government can't help them, I mean they're helpless.
It's really hardships, Doug. It really is, right? Because like I in my first 11 years of life when I was in Armenia, I saw war. I saw Armenia was at war with Azerbaijan. Communism fell. I remember the fall of communism in Armenia, and I was like 3.
Wow.
I was 3, 4 years old. I remember like what my neighbors were doing, what the adults were doing, the happiness, people shooting guns in the air. But as a 3, 4-year-old seeing that stuff, and then I remember not having food to eat because of all the junk that came after communism fell, money going and becoming nothing. Like some of this stuff develops you in a certain way where you, it just matures you. And I think generally in America, when I compare American young people to young people in Armenia specifically, because I have connections there, they're worlds apart. And I think the number one difference between them is difficulties.
Yeah.
We're too pampered. Everything's too easy. Okay. So you were married. That's cool, man. You got married young. And what led you to kind of starting to doubt this stuff?
I think I was just like a lot of people. 9/11, when that happened, and the internet boom, like people started really questioning religion. In the early 2000s, I started really asking the question: is what I believe true? And not only that, but asking the question: do I really understand the other side, and why they believe what they believe, or why they don't believe what I believe? And understanding and asking the what's more likely question really helped. And here's another big one. My view of hell changed. I was raised in the eternal conscious torment world. You know, that's what hell is. And I started really asking questions like, would a God create anything at all if he knew this is what would result? Some people would end up there.
That's interesting. Why didn't your view change to something like annihilationism?
Because, well, even if it's better, or universalism is probably the best from the theistic point of view.
But I'm not saying universalism.
Right.
I'm saying annihilationism. Like just so instead of hell, they just stop existing.
Yeah, I think. To be honest, there wasn't a predominant view in Christianity. It still isn't. And so it never really latched on to me. But let me be clear. It's hell is just one factor, just like for you, there's many factors why you do believe. Right. It's more or less, do I have any good reason to think any of this is true? Like, really a man coming back from the dead, really a man claiming to be God? Like there's people today who make those claims, and I don't immediately believe it. In fact, I disbelieve it until I have sufficient evidence to believe it. And then I ask myself, is there sufficient evidence to believe the core propositions of Christianity? And I came to the conclusion, no. I do believe that we could have the New Testament exactly the way we see it today, and Christianity still be false.
Do you think my analysis was fair when I said that it couldn't, considering that the words of Jesus would be deceptive, if we want to be very gracious, a complete lie, like he's a con man, at the very most, and then the disciples themselves making up lies, like blatant lies.
I think that the view of lying even back in the first century is the different view of lying today. So
Okay.
So even in cultures today, like you've heard the Nazi argument, right? Of would you lie to save a few Jews in your basement?
Yeah. I've written papers on it.
Yeah. And so the answer most philosophers say is yes, that's a moral thing to do, is to lie to save a life. I think this is what the New Testament authors, if they truly believe that Jesus, if they're producing this narrative of a physical Jesus rising, they had this greater good idea in their head, like the kingdom of God is at hand. And so they didn't view this as lying. They viewed it as a way to make it more real for people, as a reason to believe it and accept it. And so for them, it was the Nazis in the Jews in the basement to protect them from the Nazis. We got to protect these people from the evil one. Let's produce this narrative, even though we know it's not true, if you believe the traditional authorship.
Okay. Cool. Well, thanks for this, man. I do have to go.
Okay, yeah, me
but
too.
Go ahead. No,
I was just going to say, like, even if you assume the worst case of that lying was viewed the same way as today, and every author purposely lied, I still would say that is far, far, far more likely than a man rising from the dead. In other words, we have examples in history of people lying and great conspiracy theories existing for long periods of time, like thousands of years. Like look at Islam. Like, did Muhammad hear from Allah in a cave through Gabriel? Of course not. Like, but yet it still persists.
Oh, you and I might have different analysis there.
Well, you might think it's a demon, but I don't know. But
I clearly think it's a demon. But
yeah, but
I think, look, he heard something. So
and Paul saw something.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I would agree. Paul did see something. No, I don't necessarily disagree. I think both of them saw something. I think they're real experiences. But yeah, I gotta go because I've been on it for 2 hours and 50 minutes now.
Oh, you're an amateur. Yeah, I've been on for 3 hours 27.
I think I did an interview. I did an interview with a guy named Carl Moser, and that we were discussing like theology. He's a theologian. That went on maybe long. I think 3 hours is the longest. But I'm planning on doing a 5-hour stream. Once I don't want to say 3,500 subscribers, but we hit 4,000 subscribers. I'll do a 5-hour stream, and then invite some folks on. Maybe I'll reach out to you, and I can have some atheists pop on there too, so it could be fun.
Can you answer one question before you go?
Sure.
Because you asked me
Yeah.
What would it take for you to leave Christianity? What would you have to learn, hear, realize?
So if I were to leave Christianity, I don't think atheism would be the natural place to go. I mean, it seems like that was the case for you. You went into some kind of a deism or. But what
would you have to learn to leave Christianity and say Christianity is false? What would you have to learn, hear, see?
I think substantive arguments against the resurrection, that it didn't happen. If I was convinced that the resurrection of Jesus didn't happen, then Christianity goes out the window.
And what specifically would you have to see about the resurrection? Like, can you imagine anything you would learn and say, oh, really? This okay, I don't believe it anymore.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether I would sit there and say I would have to see A, B, and C. I'm kind of restraining myself from saying, well, yeah, if they found the tomb of Jesus and he's in there or something like that, right? I mean, that's a given, but I don't want to be unfair to my criticism of you coming up with a very difficult kind of scenario in there. So I'll be gracious in that sense. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But it would have to be good enough where I go, yeah, no resurrection. And at that point, I would probably end up being a theist of some sort.
A classical theist/deist type.
Yeah, I would say like something like the philosopher's God.
Yeah.
That would be the most reasonable conclusion I would come to.
Okay. Well, thanks for your answer, and thanks for hopping on. I wish more people would be like you.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. And you as well. So this has been a really good example of a normal conversation. Christians and atheists be nice to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
So if there's one thing you guys can learn from this conversation is Just be normal in your conversations. Don't yell. Don't accuse each other of being like from Satan. I'm sorry, by the way. Like if there's people out there that say you're influenced and I don't know.
Oh, it doesn't bother me at all. No.
I know, but there's people that do that. It's just nonsense. So yeah, and for the atheists, don't just claim Christians are stupid. That's not fair as well.
Yeah, that's not fair. I used to be a Christian, and I don't think my IQ went up just because I left Christianity.
Correct. It's like a boom. Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Doug. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Man. Maybe we can reconnect some other time.
Happy New Year, Arthur.
You too. You too.
Hey, who suggested I go on Arthur's channel? Whoever you were, thank you. That ended up being good. I'll read the chat here for a bit. Welcome here, Irresistible Truth. Well, thank you, Jerome Robinson. What would I do without you? Maybe we should put you on the payroll at the Wichita Home Office as a scout. Bill Shirk says, that was really good. I like Arthur. Yeah, I like Arthur too. Doug, may I come on for 90 seconds and explain a prayer? This is Michael. No. I'm tired. And you're not going to do better than Arthur, so. I always say I'm not going to watch you anymore, but end up getting sucked in PineCreek. You win again. I'm like George Costanza. You hate me, but you can't get rid of me. Does he play poker? I doubt it, Kevin. But Arthur, if you play poker, you're welcome to join. We have a great group of people. We even have a few token females. And one token Christian. Kevin. I'm trying to keep him. He wants to leave Christianity. And I say, no, you stay a Christian so I can say there's one Christian in our poker nights. His answer to the seizure hypothetical was clip-worthy, though. I'll say that for sure. I like that question. It shows that we're both products of the Enlightenment, and we're not that different. It's back to work for some of you tomorrow, right? Good luck.